He was left with a permanent limp after saving his childhood sweetheart, who then abandoned him and went abroad. I took the despondent man in, cared for him tenderly, and sought out every renowned physician I could find. 3 years later, his leg was finally healed, yet, the first thing he did was seek out his now destitute sweetheart. His tone was full of cautious hesitation. "Eneen, I'm not a cripple anymore. Let me take care of you, okay, given a second chance at life." I looked at my childhood sweetheart, pleading for me to return from his wheelchair, and simply sneered, "Han Won-jo, this is your Medal of Honor for charging into battle for love. You should cherish it. There's been an accident at the intersection." A sharp, urgent cry of alarm reached my ears. After a few seconds of blurred vision, the scene before me began to come into sharp focus. A massive crowd surged towards the intersection. The familiar scene overlapped with the memory of the car crash years ago, when my childhood friend had rushed to save his beloved white moonlight. I froze on the spot, soon jostled and staggered a few steps by the surging crowd before pushing forward again, until I saw Han Won-jo collapsed on the ground, his ankle bent at a grotesque angle, blood steadily spreading across the road surface, yet his white moonlight, Shanine, merely sat there elegantly, weeping with a delicate pear blossom in the rain sorrow. As if performing in a tragic stage play, it finally dawned on me that I had been reborn. In my past life, Han Won-jo did the same thing. He pushed his beloved white moonlight out of the way of an oncoming car. The price for playing the hero was a crippled leg, yet he accepted it willingly, but Shanine abandoned him to study abroad just when he needed her most. The once proud Han Won-jo was suddenly cast down into the mud, and from then on, he never recovered his spirit. I couldn't bear to see the boy I'd admired for years in such a broken state, so I took him in, cared for him tenderly, and sought out every renowned physician I could find for him. 3 years later, his leg was finally healed, yet, the first thing he did was go find his down-and-out white moonlight. His tone was full of cautious tenderness. "Eneen, I'm not a cripple anymore. Let me take care of you, okay?" And just like the rehabilitation equipment he had used, I was left behind in that rental apartment I had mistaken for a home, burdened with the aches and pains of overexertion. It was just like the past he had so completely severed. Little did I know, when I woke up, everything had been reshuffled. I've returned to the very beginning, the place where it all started. I covered my face, laughing and crying as tears streamed down my cheeks. "Han Won-jo, I hope this time, even if you have to drag that lame leg of yours, you and Shanine will have a long and happy union, bound together for 100 years. Han Won-jo's face contorted in agony, his mouth only able to let out a few pained moans, unable to form a single coherent sentence. I stood quietly hidden in the crowd, watching his miserable state with great relish, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Even Shinyan's tearful, sobbing demeanor began to feel oddly endearing. "Han Won-jo, this is what you wanted, isn't it? Who needs an ambulance? Love really is the best painkiller." In my past life, the moment I heard Han Won-jo was in trouble, I immediately rushed over through the crowd. After pushing aside the obstructive Shanine, the first thing I did was call an ambulance for him, but right in the middle of waiting for help, he furrowed his brows, glared at me, and with great difficulty, forced a few words from his throat. "Don't you dare lay a hand on my Eneen. No one gets to bully my girl while I'm down." The way they looked at me, you'd think I was the wicked side character standing in the way of their true love. My heart felt like it had been slashed by a knife that just cut a lemon, sharp, stinging, and unbearably sour. Shanine gave me a smug tilt of her chin, then threw herself at him, clinging tightly, only to make his wound bleed even more. I was about to scold them, but Han Won-jo's fiercely protective glare shut me right up. Just thinking about how passionately I loved Han Won-jo in my past life makes me sick to my stomach. God, was I a complete idiot in my last life? You'd have to be out of your mind to like a loser like Han Won-jo. If I get another chance at life, I'm never getting involved in the mess of this crazy couple again. Just then, a kind-hearted passerby took out their phone, ready to call an ambulance for him, and casually remarked, "Hey, don't just stand there crying, girl. Call the police for your boyfriend, quick." In his urgency, his voice rose a little without him realizing it. As a result, the spoiled little princess cried even harder. Han Won-jo's heart ached so much his eyes turned red. Glaring at the passerby, he accused, "Don't you yell at her." The passerby's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment before he finally rolled his eyes in exasperation and silently put his phone away. The other bystanders also gave up on helping. After all, if his own girlfriend wasn't even concerned, Why should they go out of their way to be a nuisance? Having seen enough of the show, I found it rather dull and turned to leave. The moment I turned my head, my eyes met Han Won-jo's. Catching the flicker of disappointment in his eyes, a faint smile touched my lips as I quickened my pace to leave. I didn't see Han Won-jo again until 2 days later. 2. The homeroom teacher organized a few of his close classmates to visit him in the hospital. As his childhood friend who grew up with him, I was naturally on the guest list. I learned about what happened after the car accident from Han Won-jo's roommate. As the crowd of onlookers grew, Shanine finally, belatedly, remembered to call an ambulance. Without my intervention, all the commotion meant that by the time he reached the hospital, he had already missed the critical window for treatment. In the end, Han Won-jo had to have part of his leg amputated, completely shattering any hope of a full recovery like in his past life. For someone as perfectionistic as Han Won-jo, this was a devastating blow, and this was only the beginning. After a long period of mental preparation, I thought I was finally ready to face Han Won-jo with composure. Yet, when I saw Han Won-jo again, lying weak and frail in his hospital gown, a surge of intense fury and hatred erupted within me. He had looked just as pitiful back when Shanine abandoned him. His face was deathly pale, gaunt to the point of being unrecognizable. Lying sickly in bed, he wouldn't speak or eat, just staring vacantly out the window, as if he might vanish from this world at any moment. I let out a soft sigh and raised my hand to pour him a glass of water. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. "Xiaoyun, you're all I have left, you won't leave me, will you?" I promised him I wouldn't. Because of that one promise, I stayed by his side through the 3 most difficult years. I started working myself to the bone, scrimping and saving to cover his exorbitant medical bills. At the hardest times, I survived on as little as 4 hours of sleep a day, a complete disaster in the kitchen. I painstakingly studied recipes, ruined several pots and pans before finally managing to cook meals that were both delicious and nutritious. I went from hospital to hospital, trying both traditional Chinese and Western medicine, all in a desperate bid to cling to that sliver of hope. I even placed my hopes in the divine, kowtowing with every step from the foot of the mountain all the way to the temple. Before the Buddha, I prayed, willing to trade 10 years of my own life in exchange for his recovery. The Buddha answered my prayers, leading me to a reclusive master physician deep in the mountains. After I pleaded with him persistently for 2 months, the miracle-working doctor finally agreed to treat Han Won-jo for me. The doctor's skill was such that he worked a miracle. 3 months later, Han Won-jo could move freely again, with almost no trace left of his former injury. At the same time, the game program Han Won-jo had written perfectly caught the wave of the trend, and its copyright was successfully sold for a sky-high price. I thought our hardships were finally over and our luck had turned, but the very next day, Han Won-jo, who had just been promoted to my fiancé, completely vanished without a trace. Just as I was frantic enough to go to the police, an algorithm pushed a trending video to my feed. There, in the city's central square, my beloved fiancé was staging a spectacular, public proposal for his childhood sweetheart, the one who got away. He was down on one knee, his gaze holding a tenderness I had never seen, his hand trembling with nervous excitement as he slid the ring onto Xinyun's finger. As the New Year's bell tolled, brilliant fireworks burst across the sky in great swathes. Amidst countless well-wishes, they shared a blissful kiss, a perfect match, a talented man and a beautiful woman, like a pair of flawless jade. I let out a bitter laugh, tore off the makeshift ring Han Won-jo had made me from a soda can tab, my heart aching so sharply I could barely breathe. Where there is no love, there is only stinginess. I was just a stepping stone on his path to true love, the bridge he burned after crossing. Empty words are one thing, but I'm not worth the trouble. My thoughts returned to the present. I glanced at Han Won-jo's 4-line refilling with blood, his empty pant leg, and Shanine, who was absorbed in her phone nearby. I averted my gaze and quietly followed behind the counselor and my classmates, uttering a few perfunctory, official-sounding phrases. After the pleasantries were over, the counselor called Shanine out of the room. Just like in my previous life, I delivered the happy news that her study abroad application was successful. Unsurprisingly, Shanine would make the same choice. A pleased smile spread across my face. "Xiaoyun," just as I was about to leave with the main group, Han Won-jo suddenly called out to me. His expression was sorrowful, and his weak voice drifted over. "Xiaoyun, how did you become so cold? The Xiaoyun I know isn't like this." She wouldn't have ignored me after my car accident, nor would she have taken so long to visit. So, he actually knows how good I was to him back then. But how did he treat me in return? I sneered inwardly, but kept a straight face, throwing his own words from years ago right back at him. You said it yourself, you only see me as a friend, and told me not to meddle in your affairs out of some misguided affection. My words left him speechless, after a long silence. His lips parted as if he was about to speak, but then Shanine returned, the guilt on her face instantly twisted into venomous resentment when she saw me alone with Han Wenzhou. Xiaoyun, how dare you have the gall, sneaking around to seduce him while I'm away. My Wenzhou only has eyes for me. Some people should save themselves the humiliation. Shanine cursed at me while reaching out to hit me. Han Wenzhou watched in silence, offering no defense on my behalf. Even though he knew Shanine was being unreasonable, I sneered and took a step back, dodging the slap she swung at me. I looked at her with composed ease, raising an eyebrow. Don't worry, I don't have a habit of scavenging for trash. You can keep that piece of garbage for yourself. With that, I turned and walked away without a backward glance, ignoring the wounded look on Han Wenzhou's face. Perhaps because of Han Wenzhou's amputation, Shanine left this life earlier than in her previous one. 3. Guilt-ridden, she left quietly and alone, without telling Han Wenzhou about her plans to go abroad. She said her goodbyes to others in private, and I even received a text from her that felt like a provocation. Xiaoyun, believe it or not, even if I'm gone, you still can't beat me. I laughed. She really hadn't changed a bit. On the night Han Wenzhou proposed to her, she posted a WeChat moment visible only to me. A picture of their interlocked fingers was captioned with a short line. All I have to do is stand there, and he will love me. The old me might have felt wronged and heartbroken seeing this, but now, Han Wenzhou means absolutely nothing to me. The boy who promised to protect me forever had already begun to rot away, bit by bit, in those youthful years. I replied, I'm kinda starting to ship you too, may you be locked together forever. Without waiting for Xinyin's response, I immediately blocked all her and Han Wenzhou's contact info. In this life, I'm going to live for myself. I put my phone down, buried myself in my books, and started grinding for the upcoming final exams. It wasn't until the next roll call in our major specific class that I realized Han Wenzhou hadn't been to class in a long time. His roommate said Han Wenzhou was like a walking corpse these days, barely scraping by, drowning himself in alcohol every day. I didn't pay it any mind. My head was filled with thoughts of how many vocabulary words I still had to memorize and which difficult course problems I needed to ask the professor about after class. Time flew by, and before I knew it, final exams had arrived. As I was leaving the exam hall, I literally bumped into Han Wenzhou, who was there to process his leave of absence. He had lost a lot of weight, his cheekbones were more prominent, and he was struggling with his wheelchair, a far cry from the confident, spirited young man he once was. I pretended not to see him and walked right past. Yet, he grabbed my wrist and said in a trembling voice, Xiaoyun, are you going to abandon me too? I pulled my hand away, at a loss for words. Don't act like there's something between us. Stay away. I have no interest in being the rebound guy. I watched his hands tighten on the wheelchair and gave a nasty smile. Besides, with travel being so convenient these days, studying abroad doesn't mean you'll never see her again. She only left you once. It's not the end of the world. If you love her that much, just forgive her. Come on, don't be so petty about it. He lowered his head, a pensive look on his face, a knowing smile played on my lips. Judging by the timeline from my past life, Shanine should have already found herself a new boyfriend in Paris by now. I couldn't wait to see Han Wenzhou's reaction when he found out. That very night, Han Wenzhou booked the next available flight and rushed to Paris. Our mutual friend, Brother Liu, worried for his safety, unable to talk him out of it, he had no choice but to accompany him on the trip. While waiting for his flight, he sent me a ton of messages. Xiaoyun, Han Wenzhou has completely lost his mind. For a woman with no conscience, he's done so many crazy things, as his brother. It's so frustrating to see him like this. Xiaoyun, I can't get through to him anymore. He always listened to you before. Could you try talking some sense into him? With a blank expression, I dug through my album and sent over a screenshot of Han Wenzhou's social media post, one that Shanine had specifically sent to me before. In the picture, Han Wenzhou wore a doting smile as he knelt on one knee to put a sock on Xinyin's foot. The cloyingly sweet, over-the-top declaration was practically blinding. Ladies on my friends list, don't bother talking to me. I only listen to my sweet baby. He didn't even reply to the female teacher who was messaging him to submit his competition entry. When she came across this post, she slowly typed a single question mark in the comments. There was a noticeable pause on the other end. The typing indicator lingered for a full 2 minutes before a stiff message finally came through. About to board. Talk later. With that, they hastily put an end to the awkward conversation. It had all the hallmarks of a hasty retreat. They arrived on a weekend, so Shanine wasn't at the university. Furthermore, Han Wonjo's number had been blocked by Shanine the very day he left. Consumed by a helpless rage, Han Wonjo seized a moment when Brother Lu was distracted to shake him off. He then stubbornly wheeled his chair back and forth through the apartment complexes surrounding the campus, as if by fate. He actually found Shanine on a stone bridge, but the sight before him was a sharp stab to his eyes. Shanine was the only child in her family, doted on and spoiled by her parents since she was little. The Shin family had power and wealth, ready to clean up any mess she made, no matter the mistake. At every stage of her life, there was no shortage of opportunists fawning over her. She was also blessed with striking beauty, attracting admirers from as early as elementary school. It was only natural that she grew up with an arrogant, spoiled, and willful disposition. After getting together with Han Wonjo, he spoiled her rotten, whether it was waiting in line for 2 hours in the winter to buy her favorite breakfast, or giving up an important competition just to be with her. Han Wonjo never had a single regret. In fact, whenever he did these things, his face was always lit up with a blissful, sweet smile. Yet after being together for so long, this was the very first time he saw a trace of tender affection on Shanyine's face. Shanine was clinging to the arm of a tall, handsome mixed-race man, nestling against him intimately like a little bird. The man whispered something in her ear, sending her into a fit of giggles. Then, with a shy smile, she rose on her tiptoes and planted a kiss on the man's handsome cheek. Han Wonjo's eyes bulged with fury, his face a mask of terrifying rage. A surge of blind anger drove him to wheel his chair forward in a charge. He wanted to lunge at the man who had cuckolded him, but hampered by his disability, he only managed to stumble and tumble out of his wheelchair. The scene was both pitiful and absurdly comical. The sharp stones had cut his palm, but he seemed to feel no pain, his gaze fixed solely on Shanine as he demanded an explanation. Shanine curled her lip in disdain. Look at the state of you. How could you possibly be worthy of me? I was only with you in the first place because you were handsome. It was just a bit of fun. Now you're a cripple. Did you really think I'd take care of you for the rest of your life? I'm not your devoted little childhood sweetheart. Han Wonjo's eyes blazed with fury. You bitch, I ended up like this because of you. Shanine, fingers interlaced with her new boyfriend, said indifferently, I never asked you to save me. You were the one who came running over, all eager and desperate. Han Wonjo was furious. He struggled, throwing punches their way, but Shinyin's new boyfriend kicked him straight into the river. Han Wonjo couldn't swim. By the time Brother Lu arrived, he had already lost consciousness. Brother Lu called to tell me that Han Wonjo was running a high fever, and in his delirium, he kept calling out my name, Xiaoyun. He's really learned his lesson this time. He's seen that woman for who she truly is and genuinely knows he was wrong. Is there still a chance for you too? He used to. He really was very good to me back then. He beat up anyone who bullied me, saved up 2 months' worth of breakfast money to buy me a teddy bear, and even promised under the shooting stars to protect me forever. The affection in his eyes was unmistakably genuine, and while I wasn't as bold as he was, I made sure to respond to everything he did. If he got into a fight for me, I'd patch him up and help him with his studies. If he gave me a teddy bear, I'd stay up for nights on end to make him a bracelet by hand in return. He promised to protect me forever, so I gave him my whole heart, praying for the boy I loved to have a lifetime of peace and happiness. Everyone just assumed we were a couple, because aside from a formal confession, the care and affection we showed each other was no different from that of a real couple. I want to believe that the boy he once was truly cared for me. But it wasn't until I met Shanine that I understood how fickle the heart can be. I cut off Brother Lu's rambling. I remember you have a younger sister. Given Han Wonjo's current state, would you be willing to introduce him to her? Brother Lu almost instinctively thought of all the messy history between Han Wonjo and Shanine. His brow furrowed involuntarily, and he fell silent on the spot. See? Even a good-natured guy like Brother Lu knows that the current Han Wonjo is far from an ideal match. He fell silent for a long moment, which dissolved into a sigh. I'm sorry, Xiaoyun, I wanted so badly for us to go back to the way things were. I didn't consider your feelings. After that day, Brother Lu never again took it upon himself to report Han Wonjo's situation to me. I was able to enjoy a period of peace and quiet for a while. My feelings for Han Wonjo have gradually settled into calm, a far cry from the seething resentment I once felt. It's not worth wasting my emotions on someone like him. I can't even be bothered to spare him my hatred anymore. As graduation approaches, I'm spinning like a top, busier than ever. In my past life, I missed several important exams while constantly running around to take care of Han Wonjo. On the day of the postgraduate entrance exam itself, I even collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Now that fate has given me a second chance, I will treasure every moment and refuse to waste a single second on people who don't matter. 5. Freed from those external distractions, I threw myself wholeheartedly into self-improvement, delving deep into my studies and actively competing to win awards. In my senior year, I successfully secured a spot for guaranteed postgraduate admission. During the fall recruitment season, my outstanding resume landed me offers from several well-known companies. My top choice company, even after learning I had secured a postgraduate recommendation, was still willing to hold a job offer for me until after I completed my master's degree. To make my internship more convenient, I moved out of the dormitory, but right outside the apartment I had rented, I ran into the last person on earth I ever wanted to see. A cold rain pattered down, a biting wind blew, and the sound of tires rolling echoed from the wet ground. Han Wonjo had no umbrella. Wearing only a thin white shirt, he huddled in his wheelchair. The drizzle soaked him through, his hair and clothes clung damply to his body, just like a stray puppy. But this time, I won't be taking him home. I used to love seeing him in a white shirt the most. That boy in white, so youthful and unrestrained, made my heart skip a beat for countless seasons. Now, all I want to do is mutter, "What a scheming man," playing the sympathy card. Huh. I clicked my tongue in disdain. Pitying a man is a surefire way to invite a lifetime of bad luck. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up, he straightened his back slightly and began wheeling his chair slowly toward me. He looked awkward and hesitant, the words catching in his throat before he finally managed to blurt out, "Xiaoyun, how have you been?" I lost my patience and turned to head upstairs. Seeing me about to leave, he panicked completely and reached out as if to pull me into an embrace. I was so utterly repulsed that I juked away a good 10 meters in a flash, as if he were some disgusting vermin. His hand froze in midair, a flicker of pain and confusion in his eyes. "Xiaoyun, do you still blame me?" He hung his head, clutching his own hair in anguish as he wept quietly. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I was wrong, I'm such a bastard, I betrayed the genuine love you gave me." Overcome with emotion, he began slapping himself hard across the face. "It's always been you, I was just bewitched by her. If she had never come along, we would have been so happy. Xiaoyun, please give me another chance. I swear, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." This scene reminded me of a line I once read in a book. Men love to make vows, but their promises are about as meaningful as a dog's bark. The uncanny resemblance between the scene in the book and reality drew a scornful laugh from me. I stared at him coldly, each word a calculated stab to the heart. "Oh. So you want to compensate me with the rest of your crippled life? Is that compensation or revenge? If that's the case, go find someone else to compensate. I have no interest in being a free caretaker." He was incredulous. You look down on me." I yawned and said with a sarcastic tone, "Who am I to complain? Han Wonjo, consider this your badge of honor for charging into the battlefield of love. You should treasure it." With that, I quickly walked toward the elevator. Just as I was about to press the button, Han Wonjo's muttering came from behind me. "But in our past life, you never cared about these things." My steps faltered, but the hesitation lasted only a second. As I closed the balcony window, I glanced down at the street below. Han Wonjo was still standing there, frozen. Hearing the sound from the balcony, he suddenly looked up and shouted at me. 6. My leg will definitely be healed, even if you look down on me. I still love you, Xiaoyun. Wait for me to come back. I'll prove to you just how much I love you." The light sleeping woman next door was jolted awake and snapped angrily, "Can't you let a person sleep? What's wrong with you? Making such a racket in the middle of the night. You men are all full of it." I gave the woman a silent thumbs up in my mind. Han Wonjo shut his mouth, crestfallen, and left with a sorrowful look on his face. All that remained was a lonely, stubborn figure walking away. Later, he loitered around the entrance of my building for a few more days. After being turned away several times, he seemed to fall into a stubborn, obsessive loop. He was convinced that if his leg was healed, we could go back to the way we were. After leaving me a cringe-worthy love letter, he left City B. frantically searching for a cure for his leg, but even after he was gone, he never stopped his presumptuous concern. He got my contact information from who knows where, got a new number, and continued to harass me. I simply changed my number outright, keeping only a few regular contacts. My world has become much quieter, though I still hear news of him from time to time. A classmate said they saw him at a hospital in City A, and a friend mentioned spotting him at a traditional Chinese medicine hospital in City C. So, he really was reborn. These were all places I had rushed around to in my previous life, seeking treatments that had shown some effect for him. He's just following the blueprint, retracing the very path I blazed for him. For a long time after that, even Brother Lu couldn't reach him. Han Wenzhou seemed to have completely severed all ties with the outside world. I suspect that, after all hope was lost, he must have gone into the deep mountains to seek out that reclusive miracle doctor, just as I did years ago. Old man Lu was eccentric and made a slew of outrageous demands, hoping to make me back down, but for Han Wenzhou's sake. I gritted my teeth and persevered. Finally, with a helpless look at my hopeful eyes, he nodded and agreed to make an exception for me just this once. As Elder Lu prepared the treatment plan, he stroked his beard and said to me in a veiled manner, "Don't forget the trap once you've caught the fish, or burn the bridge after crossing the river. Remember to keep your wits about you, girl, don't be a fool." At the time, I was so overjoyed that Han Wenzhou's leg had a chance of recovery that I didn't dwell on the deeper meaning of his words. Looking back now, as an outsider, he actually saw things more clearly than I did. I just wonder if Han Wenzhou's little show of insincere devotion will be enough to move old Lu this time. But whatever the outcome, I'm past caring. A new chapter of life awaits, with more opportunities and challenges ahead. During my postgraduate studies, I met many like-minded friends and encountered knowledgeable, meticulous, and rigorous mentors. Every day was busy yet fulfilling. That day, as I returned from studying at the library as usual, I heard my roommate's exclamation the moment I walked in, "Oh my God. Xia Yun, come here quick. The CEO of Hansha Group is publicly confessing his feelings for you." Before I could even process what was happening, my roommate's phone screen was already shoved right in front of my face. Hansha Group is a rising star in the gaming industry, having recently shot to fame with a massively popular competitive game. Its CEO and largest shareholder, Han Wenzhou, gave an interview to the media, drawing on his past life experience. He decided against simply selling the rights this time and instead founded his own gaming company. In the video, impeccably dressed in a suit, he exuded an air of mature ease as he chatted and laughed effortlessly with the reporters. I noticed Han Wenzhou's movements as he walked onto the stage were somewhat slow. My gaze instinctively shifted to his legs, and that's when I realized he was wearing a prosthetic limb. Sharp-eyed netizens clearly noticed it too. The comments section was flooded with people expressing their heartache for him, exclaiming that the disabled CEO novel trope had become a reality. Young, accomplished, and resilient despite his disability, coupled with his good looks, it was inevitable that the reporters would steer the conversation toward gossip. Han Wenzhou let out a light chuckle, neither confirming nor denying anything. Between the lines, he hinted at having a childhood sweetheart who held a special place in his heart. The reporter, sharp as ever, latched onto the repeated mentions of his current company's name. Seizing the opportunity, they pressed further. "Mr. Han, could you share the story behind the name Hansha Group?" Han Wenzhou offered a knowing smile. Han and Xia are taken from her surname and mine. He paused for a moment, looked up at the camera with a smile, "And I intend to give her half of my shares as a betrothal gift." The room erupted in an uproar. The journalists were stunned for a second, then quickly caught on and offered their congratulations. Han Wenzhou acknowledged each one, then pressed his fingers to his forehead and said with a touch of helplessness, "But we've had a bit of a falling out recently, so she probably doesn't want to see me." The comment section exploded. "Who is this guy, living the dream? Holy crap, if I had a boyfriend like that, I'd be slapping myself after every argument. A disabled tycoon and his high-maintenance childhood friend, oh my god, it's like a novel come to life. Sour grapes on the vine, you and I beneath it. Am I the only one who thinks this childhood friend is laying it on a bit thick?" Netizens quickly dug up my information, and the kind-hearted ones launched a cross-platform campaign to help Han Wenzhou win his girl back. In just that short time, some fans even started writing fanfiction about us. The more I read, the deeper my frown became. It felt like being force-fed something utterly disgusting. I have to hand it to you, Han Wenzhou. You really have a special talent for being revolting. 7. Just thinking about it is enough to give me nightmares. I was so startled that I jolted, quickly handed the phone back to my roommate, and immediately started gathering information on the love story between Han Won-jo and Shanine over the years. Good thing I saved all their lovey-dovey videos and photos before deleting them. Just in case I got guilt-tripped out of the blue one day, I spent the whole night sorting through their relationship timeline from the very beginning. I even polished up their bittersweet love story a bit and compiled it all into a 100-page PowerPoint. It's so detailed you could practically play it at their wedding. Damn, I'd become their shipper. The very next day, before I could even post my clarification, the world outside had already turned upside down. First, my senior lab mates, under the same advisor, lured me to the square across from campus under the pretense of work. Just as I sensed something was off and was about to make a run for it, a brilliant, multicolored firework display, spelling out my name, exploded across the city sky. The fireworks exploded, and so did I, watching the vast swathes of fireworks flaunt their presence in the sky in a bold, sequential display of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. I wished I could dig a tunnel right there and then to escape. Han Won-jo, his face full of deep affection, knelt on one knee, the prosthetic leg faintly gleaming with a metallic sheen. A few sentimental onlookers were moved to cover their mouths, tears welling in their eyes, as chants of "marry him" rose and fell around them. Han Won-jo himself seemed deeply moved, holding a bouquet of 999 roses in one hand and a diamond ring in the other. All right. You really came out swinging with the grand gesture right off the bat, huh? I was completely dazzled by Han Won-jo's flashy, over-the-top display. For two people in love, this is the other's clumsy yet fervent expression of affection. But I just felt sick. I'd already witnessed such a grand proposal once before, in my past life. It was in a video of Han Won-jo proposing to Shanine. He didn't even bother to change the routine. I closed my eyes, not even having the courage to look at him. Hearing the same lines he once used to propose to Shanine in a past life, I was so mortified I could have dug a whole Barbie dream house with my toes. Just as I was racking my brain for a way to escape this situation, Shanine swooped in and saved me from the awkwardness. She burst out from the crowd, her eyes rimmed red, and threw herself at Han Won-jo, the once favored daughter of fortune, now burdened with massive debt after her father's imprisonment, had lost all her former haughtiness. Shanine looked at Han Won-jo with pitiful, pleading eyes as she poured out her feelings for him. Won-jo, none of that was true. I haven't been seeing anyone else. I hired someone to put on that act for you that day. With everything that's happened to my family, I just didn't want to drag you down with me. Sobbing you. How could you betray me and fall for Xia Yun? But Han Won-jo was in no mood to listen to her pathetic excuses, staggered by her sudden lunge. His prosthetic limb was knocked loose and went clattering across the floor toward the crowd. For a man of his pride, that prosthesis was his last vestige of dignity and composure. In that single moment, the carefully constructed facade of control he had worked so hard to maintain shattered completely. He shoved Shanine aside and, dragging himself along the ground, frantically groped around the feet of the onlookers for his artificial limb. 8. Shanyin's words exploded through the crowd like a thunderclap, throwing the entire scene into chaos. Someone gave it a kick, and the prosthetic limb rolled right to my feet. Under Han Won-jo's earnest gaze, I slowly slipped my hands into my pockets and turned to leave without a moment's hesitation. With so many people in the square filming videos, and given the existing buzz, the incident quickly blew up on social media. Among the thousands of comments, most were roasting Han Won-jo and Shanine for their shady antics, with only a few criticizing me for being too cold toward Han Won-jo, a person with a disability. One comment in particular really stood out from the rest. Holy crap, I was in the class next to theirs in college. Those two were already wild back in the day. How did they manage to go viral for it? The online spectators rushed to ask for the inside scoop. The original poster didn't hold back, immediately posting a lengthy comment from a third-person perspective. Each of these things, taken on its own, is absolutely mind-blowing, but the most jaw-dropping of them all are these three incidents. First blood. When breaking up with Shanine, Han Won-jo ran through the rain, circling her dormitory while shouting, "Shanine, do you have any idea whose love you're rejecting? You're rejecting the love of a god." Double kill. During the blood draw for her physical, Han Won-jo kissed Shanyin's injection site to ease her pain. Triple kill. At the restaurant, Han Wonjo took each of Xinyan's fingers, which the waiter had accidentally bumped, and gave them a soothing kiss right in front of the server. After reading it, the spectators were utterly dumbfounded. Someone asked me out of curiosity, "So what does Xia Yun count as in all this?" The other woman, the OP, instantly replied, "No. She's the ultimate patsy. A buddy of mine knows Han Wonjo." Back when we first started freshman year, Han was all set to confess to Xia Yun, but on his way to do it, he laid eyes on Shanine and it was love at first sight. He said it was the first time he'd ever felt his soul shake. He ditched the confession plan right then and there and started pursuing Shanine instead. Netizens instantly felt sorry for me. Even the ones who had previously called me heartless started apologizing to me one after another. The devoted lover persona Han Wonjo had just built up for himself crumbled to dust overnight. Seizing the moment when the buzz was at its peak, I posted the detailed timeline and the PowerPoint presentation I had put together, with the caption, "Childhood sweethearts can't beat the destined newcomer. You've been shipping the wrong couple. Hashtag Han Wonjo Shanine crazy couple. Hashtag Xia Yun the unlucky one." These two hashtags instantly shot to the top 2 trending spots. The stock of Hanxia Group plummeted, leaving Han Wonjo completely overwhelmed. At the same time, Shanine was relentlessly pestering him, a classic case of desperate pursuit backfiring spectacularly. With nothing left to her name, she clung to Han Wonjo as her only lifeline. Little did she know, the more she acted this way, the more he grew to resent her. The Shin family's bankruptcy happened a year earlier than in my previous life. Out of curiosity, I looked into it and found that Han Wonjo had actually played a part in accelerating it. It was probably payback for Shanine cheating on him. No wonder he remained unmoved even when Shanine pleaded so emotionally. Turns out he was the one pulling the strings. After learning the truth, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of irony and pity. His so-called devotion to Shanine was just that shallow. I stopped paying close attention to their back-and-forth drama. But netizens kept tagging me daily to watch the circus. Well, in that case, I guess I'll just take a quick peek. Until one day, Shanine stopped me with a smug look on her face. Like a victorious rooster, she raised her head defiantly and waved the pregnancy test slip in her hand. "Xia Yun, you've lost again. I'm pregnant." I kept a straight face and replied, "Oh, congratulations." My lukewarm response infuriated her, and she began to vividly describe the intimate details of her encounters with Han Wonjo. The sheer explicitness and raunchiness of the content made me feel like I'd stumbled into the bedroom of some seedy love hotel. We were standing right there on the main road, with people bustling past and traffic flowing all around us. I silently covered my face. Standing next to her was just so embarrassing. If I've committed a crime, let the law punish me, not subject me to listening to this smut out on the street. What's the difference between this and taking a dump in the middle of the street? Before she could say anything even more shocking, I quickly cut her off. Shanine thought she had gotten under my skin, and her smile grew even more smug. "Xia Yun, he's definitely going to marry me. You absolutely must come to our wedding." But in the very next instant, Xinyan's smile froze on her face, a distinct handprint bloomed across her cheek. She stared in disbelief at Han Wonjo, who had rushed over. "You hit me, you bitch. How dare you scheme against me? You used to act so high and mighty, and now that you're down on your luck, you resort to drugging me and crawling into my bed." Shanine caressed her stomach, her eyes welling up with tears. "How can you say that to me? I did it because I love you. I know you're just saying that in anger. I regret it now, and I'm carrying your child. Can't we just forget the past and live a good life together?" Han Wonjo looked at her with utter disgust. "Spare me. Who knows if that child in your belly is even mine?" "Han Wonjo, you've gone too far." "Fine, you asked for this. I'm going straight to your office right now to let all your employees know what an irresponsible scumbag you are." With that, Shanine, still crying, pulled open the door of a taxi by the roadside. Han Wonjo hurried after her, but not before throwing a disgusting line my way. "Be good. I'll come find you after I sort this out." "Are you out of your mind?" I stood there speechless, utterly bewildered as the wind whipped around me. Following the last firework confession video, netizens quickly refreshed their meme. Their latest round of antics soon appeared in the reenactments of various. Someone even captured my speechless expression and turned it into a reaction gif with the caption, "Stop being unhinged." Looking at the memes the netizens were making, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Many lovely netizens came to encourage me, telling me I should never forgive that cringy guy. I took their good advice, steering clear of the unhinged men and women, and focused on enjoying a happy life. Right at that moment, the university had a rural research project, and I didn't hesitate to apply. To my surprise, the village we were sent to was right next to the mountain where the legendary healer, Old Lou, had lived in seclusion in my past life. After finishing today's research tasks, my advisor and classmates gradually made their way back to the arranged dormitories to rest. With nothing better to do, I decided to take a chance and wandered over to the bamboo grove where Old Lou was known to take his strolls. As I approached the bamboo grove, I saw the sprightly figure of Old Lou practicing Tai Chi with his back to me. Seeing my old friend safe and sound, my mind was put at ease. I was about to slip away quietly when I accidentally stepped on a dry branch. Hearing the sound, Old Lou immediately turned his head. Upon seeing it was me, a flicker of surprise and delight shone in his deep-set eyes. 9. I ventured tentatively. Old Lou. Old Lou gave a haughty hum, putting on a deep, thoughtful air as he greeted me. It's been a long time, girl, I smiled, not probing into why he also retained memories from our past lives. It was enough that we were both safe and sound. I jogged over, took the wine jug from him as I always used to, and followed behind him up the path towards the bamboo cottage on the hill. A jug of wine and a plate of peanuts are all it takes for two friends, despite their age difference, to talk for hours on end. Only after old Shen had gauged my current attitude towards Han Wenzhou did he tell me about Han's visit to the mountain to seek his medical help. The old man told me with great glee how he had made Han Wenzhou dig up an entire hillside of wild vegetables and carry manure for 2 whole months. In the end, he drove him down the mountain and told him to find someone else for the job. Han Wenzhou had no choice. After being fitted with a prosthetic limb, he underwent over a year of grueling rehabilitation before he could barely manage to walk slowly. I couldn't help but chuckle at Old Lou's vivid, picture-perfect description. Old Shen looked me over carefully and asked once more for confirmation. Young lady, you really don't have feelings for him anymore, do you? I said playfully. Of course, if you happen to know any quality gentlemen, you must introduce them to me first. Old Shen's eyes lit up, and he immediately started flipping through the phone book. He pointed to a long row of numbers and introduced them to me one by one. This is my eldest disciple's nephew, about 5 years older than you. He's the chief neurosurgeon at City A's First People's Hospital, handsome as they come, steady, and considerate. And this is my second disciple's son, who just returned from studying in Germany this year. He got more and more excited as he spoke, and finally just shoved the phone book right into my arms. All right, I think they all seem pretty good. Why don't you just add them all, get to know them one by one? I refuse to believe you won't find a single one you're happy with. I held the phone book, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. You're certainly a man of action. The old man lifted his chin with pride. You bet. Back in the day, I was the first among my buddies to win a wife. The signal was terrible up in the mountains. Our research team was practically offline the entire time. By the time we finished our fieldwork, the whole toxic saga between Shenine and Han Wenzhou had escalated to a life-or-death drama. To force Han Wenzhou to take responsibility, Shenine went straight to the rooftop of our university and threatened to kill herself. The two of them were locked in a standoff on that rooftop for over an hour, dredging up old grievances without end. The principal let out a piercing shriek, and the security guard on duty today broke out in a cold sweat. In the end, to protect the company's reputation, Han Wenzhou resorted to a delaying tactic, agreeing to marry Shenine after she gave birth, finally bringing the whole farce to a close. My roommate gave me a live reenactment right in front of me, complete with wild gesticulations. You have no idea how hilarious these two were. They were haggling back and forth like vendors at a wet market. Shenine demanded that President Han marry her right away. President Han refused, insisting they had to wait until after the baby was born and a paternity test was done. Shenine said that was too long, she'd wait 6 months at most. 10. Shenine was on cloud 9 again, posting daily on the platform about how much Han Wenzhou loved her, and she tagged me in every single video, of course. She never forgot to give a shout out to the baby in her belly, showing off her baby bump in creative ways 3 times a day, like clockwork. Then one day, her posts just stopped. An insider revealed that she was involved in a car accident, which resulted in a miscarriage. The driver who hit her was a middle-aged man she had never met, and it appeared to be nothing more than an accident caused by drunk driving. But Shenine didn't believe it. Like Kyun, who had lost her child, she wandered the streets, desperately mistaking other children for her own. This time, Han Wenzhou, quite uncharacteristically, stayed by her side for a while. a passerby happened to snap a photo of them shopping together, and it actually had a touch of warmth to it. Just when everyone thought they were settling into a stable life, the news suddenly broke with the shocking story of Shanine stabbing Han Wonjo multiple times. The report mentioned Shinyin's motive. She had accidentally found the driver's number in Han Wonjo's phone, grew suspicious, and ultimately discovered that he was behind the car accident. In the process, she also discovered that the evidence that sent her own father to prison was provided by Han Wonjo to her father's business rival. Shinyin's mental state was already fragile. During the argument, she grabbed a fruit knife from the table. While not fatal, the attack left Han Wonjo with severe kidney damage, condemning him to a life dependent on a urinary bag. During the police investigation, doctors diagnosed Shanine with a mental disorder, and she was committed to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. Han Wonjo was sentenced to 7 years for hiring someone to assault another person. The day he was sent to prison was the very day I graduated with my master's degree. He had someone pass on a message, saying he wanted to see me one more time. I politely but firmly declined. Are you kidding me? See him, mister. Lou has lined up over a dozen dates with eligible bachelors for me. I can't even get through them all. When would I have time to bother with him? Story 2. On the day my childhood sweetheart, Liang's son, was forced by his father to get engaged to me, his white moonlight, Song Yanran, died in a car accident on her way to see him. After the engagement, he spent every night socializing in different nightclubs, allowing rumors to spread wildly. This made me the biggest laughingstock in the circle. In the face of my questioning, Liang Sun just sneered, since you were willing to sacrifice a life to marry me, no matter how wronged you feel now, you have to endure it. Until an accident occurred, both he and I were reborn back to the eve of the engagement. Without hesitation, he took Song Anran's hand and publicly broke off the engagement with me. Later, I announced that the engagement would be held as scheduled. Liang Sun informed me indifferently, forcing me to marry you is useless. I won't attend the engagement banquet. I was silent for a moment, torn between whether to tell him now that my new fiancé was his little uncle. 1. I stared in a daze at the familiar scene in front of me. Liang Sun's grandfather, who was sitting in the main seat, slowly opened his mouth. Considering that you're about to graduate from university soon, it's time to set the date for your engagement. Only then did I belatedly realize that I had been reborn. Before I could sort out my chaotic thoughts, a familiar voice came from beside me. I don't agree. Liang Sun's eyes and brows were cold and distant as he said something completely different from what he had said in his previous life. I have someone I like, but it's not you, Xia. He glanced at me. This engagement can't happen. I suddenly understood. I wasn't the only one who had been reborn. Grandpa Liang suppressed his anger. In what capacity are you challenging me? Liang Sun smiled and looked at me in a casual tone. I've said I don't like you. You still insist on marrying me. Are you being cheap? The next second, Grandpa Liang threw his chopsticks at him. You scoundrel. Liang Sun stood up unhurriedly. You're forcing me to marry her just because you want a child from the Liang and Yu families, right? There was a hint of frivolity in his smile. Otherwise, how about I take her to a hotel tonight? If she gets pregnant, I won't have to marry her, right? Liang Sun successfully angered his grandfather, who threw the water cup in his hand mercilessly at the corner of Liang Sun's forehead. The boy smiled self-deprecatingly. Before leaving, he glanced at me without much emotion. 2. Xia Xia. Go and bring him back for Grandpa. Grandpa Liang breathed heavily and said to me with difficulty, under the urging of everyone. I had no choice but to follow him out. My original intention was to go straight back to school, but as soon as I left the restaurant, I bumped into Liang Sun and his white moonlight, Song Anran. What else do you want? Liang Sun calmly protected Song Anran behind him and looked at me distantly. In his previous life, Song Anran received an anonymous text message and learned that Liang Sun and I were going to get engaged. That's why she ran out and had the car accident. Liang Sun always believed that I sent that text message. I spoke in a businesslike tone. Grandpa wants you to go back. Song Anran nervously tugged at his sleeve. Son, don't go. Liang Sun stroked her head reassuringly before turning back to me and saying, I made it very clear just now. It's impossible for me to get engaged or married to you. Impatience was hard to hide in the boy's eyes. Also, please stop pestering me. His determination actually made me feel relieved. In this life, I probably wouldn't have to be tied to him anymore. My love for Liang Sun had long been exhausted in his previous life when he publicly embarrassed me by hugging other women one after another. 3. I originally wanted to bypass the two of them and go back to school first, but Song Amran stopped me. Yu Xia, can you promise me something? I paused. Promise what? She bit her lip uneasily. Promise that you'll never pester a son again. Last time I went to check the hygiene in your dormitory and accidentally saw your diary. Didn't it say in there that you like a son? Song Amran's voice was weak but firm. Now, as a son's legitimate girlfriend, I'm asking you to promise to stay away from him. Please understand. I took a step closer to her and looked directly at her. You rummaged through my things. In high school, I always kept my diary in the drawer. Song Amran stepped back, looking a bit timid. It was just a routine hygiene check. Liang Sun frowned slightly and protected her behind him. Enough, Yu Xia. She didn't mean it. He soothed her in a low voice. She doesn't need to promise anything. I don't like her, so it's useless for her to pester me. With that, he was about to take Song Amran away. That diary contained a lot of my unspoken secret love. How could she rummage through other people's things without permission and still act so calm? I chased after them onto the road and grabbed Song Amran's arm. Don't you think you should apologize? Song Amran bit her lower lip stubbornly. I don't think I did anything wrong. I laughed out of anger. Does your upbringing tell you that it's okay to rummage through other people's things? Perhaps this sentence had a great impact on her. As soon as I finished speaking, her eyes immediately turned red, and she looked on the verge of tears. Enough, Yu Xia. Liang Sun irritably pulled my hand away. The next second, the red light at the corner turned green. A car rushed towards us. Before we could dodge, Liang Sun, probably influenced by the shadow of his previous life, pulled Song Amran away immediately. The shrill sound of the emergency brake was very close. Fortunately, I was only slightly scratched on the ankle and fell to the ground, and ran. Are you hurt? Liang Sun held Song Amran and checked her as if he had survived a disaster. The two were so immersed in their tenderness that they didn't even notice the driver leaving while cursing. After confirming that she was okay, Liang Sun finally came to his senses and noticed me trying to stand up from the ground. The streetlights were flickering. I looked up and stared at Liang Sun without saying a word. After a long silence, he suddenly chuckled. He asked me with great interest. Do you think this is karma? He always thought that I was the one who caused Song Amran's car accident in his previous life. Even though I had explained it countless times, I withdrew my gaze from the two who had left, endured the pain, and stood up. I patted the dust off myself. Fortunately, I didn't like him anymore and wouldn't be sad about it either. After that, Liang Sun's grandmother called me to their house several times. She earnestly advised me not to argue with Liang Sun. No matter what I said, Grandma seemed not to listen. A son is more stubborn now, except for his little uncle. No one can control him. Liang Sun's little uncle, Duan Wenye. He was also the actual person in power in the Liang family and the only one who had the same surname as the old master Liang. My only interaction with him was probably a year ago, when I was drunk. I played truth or dare and kissed a strange man in the booth next door. When we met again later and Liang Sun introduced Duan Wenye as his little uncle, I wished I could bury my head in the ground. As Grandma Liang was talking, a glimmer of an unreliable idea suddenly flashed in her eyes. She clapped her hands and muttered, "That's it." At that time, I didn't understand what she meant. It wasn't until a week later that I was tricked by Grandma Liang into the hotel owned by their family. I was wearing wet clothes and was stuffed with a room card by Grandma Liang. Go up and wait for a while. Someone will bring you clean clothes later. But when I swiped the card to open the door, entered the room, and turned on the light, I was completely stunned. An unusual smell filled the room. The man's tie was hanging loosely on his shirt, and he was leaning against the head of the bed, not even looking up. His voice was incredibly hoarse. "Get out." It was Duan Wenye. I immediately realized what the smell was. I turned around and tried to open the door, but it didn't move at all. It was obviously locked from the outside. "What's going on, Grandma Liang?" I said. "Get out. Can't you understand?" The man's voice was already filled with impatience. "Woohoo, I want to get out too." I can't open the door anymore." I urgently continued to turn the doorknob and retorted in a low voice. Duan Wenye's breathing paused, then there were approaching footsteps. "Why are you here?" He pulled my arm and made me face him. Only then did I feel the temperature of his palm, which made me tremble. "Little uncle," I called him obediently, trying to remind him of who I was. Duan Wenye didn't respond. He lowered his eyes and looked at me. "I heard that Liang Sun broke off the engagement with you." I nodded, not knowing why he was asking this now. He seemed to take a step closer to me, and his Adam's apple rolled slightly. "So, you don't like him anymore?" Without realizing it, I had also inhaled a large amount of the gas in the room, and my reaction was a bit slow. Without thinking too much, I just answered slowly, "No, I don't." He smiled indifferently, and his tone didn't seem like he was asking a question. "Is that so?" I slowly raised my head and looked at him helplessly and straightforwardly. The temperature in the air was slowly rising, carrying a trace of restlessness. I felt an indescribable stuffiness. I instinctively searched for a way to relieve it. Mr. Duan, a faint smile appeared on Duan Wenya's lips. He raised his hand and gently rubbed my cheek. "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" I didn't answer. Instead, I stared at his thin lips that were so close. I was wondering if they were as cool as the jelly taken out of the refrigerator. "Answer me." The emotions in Duan Wenya's eyes fluctuated, but the rationality in his words made me seem like the impatient one. I stood on tiptoe and put my arms around his shoulders, but his phone rang inopportune. Duan Wenya clicked his tongue softly and was about to take out the phone and throw it away, but when he saw the caller ID, he stopped and finally answered the phone. "Little uncle, you're back in the country." It was Liang's son. I regained a bit of my senses. I looked at Duan Wenya blankly, but my action of kissing him stopped. Duan Wenya hummed. With his other hand, he pressed against my lower back, pulling me towards him. The distance between us was narrowed again, and our lips were almost touching. "Then where are you now, little uncle?" "I'll come to find you." Liang Sun's voice came from the other end of the phone. I panicked for a moment. When I grabbed his shirt, I accidentally bumped into his collarbone. Duan Wenya hissed softly, "Be gentle." "Okay." I was dizzy and apologized in a low voice. "I didn't mean to." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. "Little uncle, who are you talking to?" I seemed to have heard this voice before. I stared at him nervously with wide eyes. Duan Wenya hung up the phone with a "your little aunt" and didn't focus on this. I had already lost my senses. All I could think about was the person in front of me. Duan Wenya picked me up and walked further into the room. As he walked, he asked with great interest, "Do you want to do something?" Duan Wenya sat down on the edge of the bed and held me on his lap. I nodded eagerly and tried to lean in and kiss him. Duan Wenya smiled and turned his head away. He pinched my chin to stop my action. "I'm getting old. I can't play the game of taking advantage and then leaving." "Oh, is being 6 years older than me enough to be described as getting old? So, if you don't take responsibility, I will definitely call the police. Do you understand?" I was like someone standing under a plum tree, with a dry throat and lips, and my eyes full of longing as I looked at the sweet plums. Looking at the plums couldn't quench my thirst, unless I was allowed to eat the plums. After I promised him several times, the plum was finally brought to my mouth. I gently kissed him, but because I was inexperienced, I pulled away as soon as our lips touched. Duan Wenya instinctively leaned in to follow, but stopped just before our lips met. "If you won't be able to kiss me anymore." His confident tone faintly carried a hint of coaxing. "Open your mouth and come closer yourself." I put my arms around his neck and leaned in again, but this time, I couldn't escape easily. Instead, I was entangled by him. 6. On this side, Liang Sun hung up the phone and just arrived at the door of his house. He was still thinking about the female voice on the phone just now. It was very familiar. He pushed the door open while deep in thought. Grandma Liang, who was sitting on the sofa and eating an apple, looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. "Ah, a son, why are you here?" "There are no classes in the department, so I came back to visit you." Grandma Liang then realized something was wrong. She immediately took out her phone to check. She found that the message she sent to Liang Sun had somehow been sent to Duan Wenya. It had been more than an hour now. Grandma Liang's mind went blank. She had originally planned to invite Liang Sun to the hotel, but unexpectedly, she invited, "Please don't try to match me and Yu Xia anymore." Liang Sun was already prepared for Grandma's long speech, but this time, she was uncharacteristically silent for a long time. Then she agreed, "I plan to try to match Xia Xia with your little uncle." Liang Sun's hand paused as he scrolled through his phone. It was hard to describe this feeling. In the few years he was entangled with Yu Xia in his previous life, he had subconsciously regarded her as his fiancée, his possession. Now, upon hearing the news that she might marry someone else, he suddenly felt an indescribable sense of irritability. So, he just casually refused on Yu Xia's behalf. "It won't work. My little uncle doesn't like Yu Xia, and Yu Xia also has someone she likes." Grandma Liang sneered. "You like Song Anren, why do you care so much?" "I originally planned to go see Song Anren when you got engaged and tell her the news of your engagement to make her give up completely." Liang Sun was stunned. His phone slipped from his hand. what did you say? So, the text message in his previous life really wasn't sent by Yuxia. 7. What he didn't know was that the little uncle he thought didn't like Yuxia was now threatening and coaxing me. The Duan Wenye I knew was always a man of few words. I didn't understand the meaning of this series of questions and conversations at this moment. He pried open my hand that was tightly gripping the pillow and interlaced our fingers. Looking down at me from above, he asked, "Who am I?" I tried to avoid answering. He then forced me to look at him. Sweat dripped down from the man's wet black hair on his forehead. His clear eyes were especially sexy at this moment. He slowly asked for my consent. "Do you want to look in the mirror?" I had no choice but to give in. Duan Wenye, say it again, Duan Wenye. It's really sad. Why didn't I fall asleep like in the novels? I have to face all this soberly. Fortunately, I was facing away from Duan Wenye and was just about to play dead. Don't pretend. I know you're not asleep. His disdainful voice shattered the dignity I had painstakingly maintained. Don't panic. I closed my eyes, determined to keep up the act of being on the verge of death. Duan Wenye sneered softly. Forget it. Let's continue. Then, my ankle was grabbed. I immediately became agitated and opened my eyes. Awake, he looked down at me. Heat gradually crept up to my ears. I pressed my lips together and remained silent. Duan Wenye got up and casually wrapped his bathrobe around him. He walked to the cabinet and turned on his phone. A few seconds later, he turned the screen towards me, looking at the big 110 on the screen. My blood pressure almost soared. The man had a half smile on his face. Remember what I told you before? Was he going to sue me for getting services without paying? Just as I was struggling with how to respond, the door was suddenly banged on. Yuxia, I know you're in there. Open the door. I have something to talk to you about. It was Liang Sun. Troubles came one after another. I stared at the door in a panic, and everything was in chaos. Liang Sun was still chattering outside. Duan Wenye's patience ran out. Frowning slightly, he directly opened the door. What's so important that you have to disturb us now? Liang Sun was stunned for 2 seconds. Uncle, why are you here? Didn't Grandma say that Yuxia is here? At this moment, I was curled up in the quilt, feeling desperate. Although I hadn't heard Duan Wenye's reply yet, I had already anticipated the upcoming storm in my heart. Until, Uncle, is your girlfriend in there? Liang Sun couldn't help but think of the previous phone call. Most likely Grandma remembered it wrong. I'll go and ask at Yuxia's house again. Then he smiled knowingly. I won't disturb you and my little aunt anymore. Give my regards to my little aunt for me. I didn't come to my senses until Duan Wenye closed the door again. Was a crisis that seemed almost inevitable resolved by Liang Sun's straightforward and not-so-smart IQ. 9. Out of the corner of my eye, Duan Wenye walked towards me. I quickly picked up my phone, trying to find something to do to prevent him from bringing up what had just happened. What are you doing? I pursed my lips. Buying medicine. Duan Wenye raised his eyes. What kind of medicine? I hesitated for 2 seconds and didn't hide it. Contraceptive pills. A soft laugh came from above my head immediately. His lazy eyebrows and eyes were filled with satisfaction. But the words he said were extremely heartless. Why are you taking them? I secretly clenched the quilt, feeling a bit indignant. Because of you. What about me? Under Duan Wenye's expressionless face, a faint sense of grievance welled up in me for no reason. I stopped arguing with him and lowered my head in silence to continue searching for the medicine. The next second, my phone was snatched away and thrown aside. The man rubbed against the slightly red corner of my eye, and his voice was uncharacteristically low and gentle. Stop fussing. I wore protection. I was stunned and tried hard to recall if there was such a part. Thinking I didn't believe him, Duan Wenye patiently added, every time. He also raised his hand and pointed at the trash can, smiling and asking, otherwise, do you want to count? I didn't really count, but I finally recalled some fragmented memories. With the help of Grandma Liang's special effect fragrance, I seemed like I had never seen a man in my life. Duan Wenye avoided my kiss and coaxed in a low voice, wait a moment. I leaned in again and murmured, I can't wait, Duan Wenye. He took a deep breath. His hand seemed to be reaching for something on the bedside table. I touched his ear again and asked disappointedly, don't you want to kiss me anymore? The rationality in Duan Wenye's eyes was on the verge of collapsing. You can't smell this fragrance anymore. I was confused. After a moment, before he kissed me again, he finally said one more sentence to clear up my confusion. I can't stand it. 10. A series of embarrassing situations had made me numb, so, when Duan Wenye offered to carry me to the bathroom, I only hesitated for a moment. Then I stretched out my hands towards him. Then I'll trouble you. Duan Winya let out a soft laugh. He let me bury my head in his neck and walked towards the bathroom. Sure, you're welcome. That day, Duan Winya still asked me again if I wanted to take responsibility for him. He saw my hesitation, but he didn't force me to make a choice again. He just said, "Your father's company is currently having problems with its capital chain, and Liang Sun has cancelled the engagement. If nothing unexpected happens, he will immediately find a new marriage partner for you." 11. Early the next morning, on the way home, I kept thinking about what Duan Winya had said. However, when I met Liang Sun downstairs of my home, that matter was temporarily put aside. There was exhaustion from staying up all night in the boy's eyes. And his voice was even colder than the morning mist. "Explain, what did you do last night?" Not answering your phone and not going home. I averted my gaze. "It has nothing to do with you. After coming out of the hotel yesterday afternoon, since I hadn't rested and was too tired to go home and deal with my father, I went to the nearest apartment under my name." But there was no need to explain all this to Liang Sun. When Liang Sun approached, the chill emanating from his clothes became even stronger. "Has nothing to do with me." He gave a faint smile. "Yu Xia, the cancellation of our engagement hasn't been announced to the public yet. Nominally, I'm still your fiancé. Does your staying out all night really have nothing to do with me?" Liang Sun's familiarity in saying this stemmed from the previous life. There was also such a situation in the previous life. During my internship, I accompanied my supervisor on a business trip for a day on short notice and didn't inform anyone. On the third day, I saw Liang Sun's figure downstairs of my apartment. At that time, there were still lipstick marks on his neck that hadn't been wiped clean, but he still angrily questioned me about where I had been staying out all night. The man in front of me overlapped with the image in my memory. I looked at him with a sense of absurdity. "You took Song Amran away in public, and that was also before the cancellation of the engagement, wasn't it?" Liang Sun stared at me for a long time, unable to hide his annoyance. He coldly curled the corners of his lips. "Do you know what I hate most about you?" His gaze seemed to be scrutinizing and also seemed to be criticizing. "It's your pettiness, always being so calculating and not hiding your jealous nature at all. Don't you think you're incredibly vulgar, Yu Xia?" I was stunned for a moment. I was just stating the facts to refute him, but I didn't expect that in his eyes. I was jealous. Liang Sun shook his head and stepped back to create a safe distance from me. "I thought I had misunderstood you. Now it seems that even if you hadn't done that thing, you would still only be jealous and petty. You really can't compare to Anran." Finally, he left me with these words and gave me a disappointed look. "Liang Sun," I called out to the person who was turning around to leave, "even if I'm jealous, it's not for you. You're really full of yourself. Don't come and bother me again. If you come to me once, I'll call the police once." After saying that, I walked towards the apartment without looking back. Jealousy and losing one's composure. I had heard these words countless times in the previous life. Liang Sun's attitude towards me changed from fierce accusations at first to casual sarcasm later. Now, after separating all my emotions towards Liang Sun and looking at it from an outsider's perspective, thinking back on all the past events, I realized that I had wasted too much unnecessary time being entangled with Liang Sun. 12. After we parted that day, Liang Sun unilaterally announced the dissolution of the engagement. Duan Winya was right. The next day, my father couldn't wait to introduce a new marriage partner to me. My initial plan was to meet the person and just go through the motions. But an accident occurred right at the beginning. "To be honest, I really like your type." In the restaurant, the blind date partner sitting across from me, the young master of the Dong family, started a truth-telling session on his own, but I couldn't join in. Because if I were to be honest now that I couldn't eat anything because of the stench of his feet that couldn't even be covered by his 30,000 yuan shoes, most likely he would get up and leave, then I would be severely scolded by my father. While I was feeling worried and depressed, a familiar voice picked up his words. "Who do you like?" I instinctively looked up immediately. Duan Winya had his suit jacket draped over his forearm, the top button of his shirt was casually undone, and he wasn't wearing a tie, looking a bit disheveled. There was a kind of romantic aura cultivated by the feasting and socializing in the business world. He looked at the young master of the Dong family with a not-so-friendly smile. "Brother Winya." The young master of the Dong family stood up abruptly. "What a coincidence, I'm on a blind date." Almost instantly, a burning gaze landed on the top of my head. If I were to convert Duan Wenya's gaze into a real temperature, I felt that I should already be bald from the heat. would Brother Winya like to join us for a meal? Seeing that Duan Winya didn't leave, the young master of the Don family politely asked, unexpectedly. He really sat down brazenly. You continue with your blind date. Just pretend I'm not here, the young master. He glanced at Duan Winya and then looked at me, struggling to speak. Overall, I'm quite satisfied with you, but I have a point that I really care about and want to ask you. Duan Winya picked up the fork and idly played with the broccoli on the plate. I retracted my gaze and nodded at the young master of the Don family. Is your virginity still intact? I let out an ah and asked, what? He smacked his lips and looked a bit embarrassed. You know, the first time, because I value this very much. Duan Winya stopped his movements. My hand hanging under the table couldn't help but clench. A sense of discomfort like being overexposed seemed to be overwhelming my breath. Just as I was about to speak, out of the corner of my eye, Duan Winya's fork was thrown onto the dining table with a not-so-light force. Wah, what's wrong, Brother Winya? Is the food not to your taste? I'll order something else for you. Duan Winya let out a cold laugh. No, I think you're quite interesting. He looked at the young master with an unreadable expression. Someone who sleeps with different women every night. Where do you get the nerve to ask a girl you just met for the first time to remain chaste for you for 20 years? Huh. The young master of the Don family blushed from being scolded but still thought he was in the right. Brother Winya, you don't understand. The Yu family is no different from selling their daughter now. I just think she looks good, so I lowered my standards. To be honest, even if I ask her to follow the 3 obediences and 4 virtues and take care of the family and the children after marriage, she, Yu Xia, can only comply. I listened in silence. My hand had already reached for the soup in front of me. I thought that in the next second, this bowl of soup would be poured over his head. I had endured it all night and really couldn't stand it anymore. Such an idiot should just get as far away as possible. Duan Winya seemed to see what I was thinking. The soup in front of me was taken away by him. Duan Winya placed the soup in front of the young master of the Don family and smiled, raising his hand and pointing. Look at yourself. Can you see what kind of person you are? The next second, he suddenly pressed on the young master of the Don family's neck and pressed his face against the edge of the soup bowl. A trace of overbearing arrogance flashed in Duan Winya's eyes. She doesn't even like me. Who do you think you are? You're just a down-and-out person who relies on your grandfather's foundation to maintain your dignity. Duan, cough cough. Duan Winya finally let go of the young master of the Don family, who had choked on 2 mouthfuls of soup. He sat back in his chair and slowly wiped the soup splashes on his hand. Without looking up, he ordered, "Get lost. Tell your father to come and explain to me in person tomorrow." It wasn't until that person left that he looked up at me. At that time, I was resting my chin in my hand and looking at him with a smile. The old man let out a rather awkward cold snort. What are you laughing at? You just slept with me. And on the other hand, you immediately went on a blind date. I haven't even settled the score with you yet. Hearing him mention this, I did feel guilty. 13. Without the stench of the young master of the Don family's feet, I regained my appetite. I ate and drank a lot of wine. By the time it was time to pay the bill, I was already drunk. It's okay, Mr. Duan, I'll pay the bill. Let me do it, let me do it. I brought the traditional virtue of fighting to pay the bill to the extreme. Duan Winya, the waiter, however, had good professional ethics and smiled politely. No need, miss you, Mr. Duan always charges it to his account. I stopped the action of bringing out my payment code and blinked. Duan Winya didn't give me time to react and walked directly to my side. Can you still walk on your own? I thought about it for a moment and let my face become as thick-skinned as possible. Well, if you carry me, I can reluctantly agree. Duan Winya smiled softly. In public. He bent down and picked me up, and then left calmly. The familiar refreshing smell on the man invaded my nostrils after a long time. It instantly swept away the listlessness that I had been feeling after being affected by the young master of the Don family for nearly an hour. My nose almost touched Duan Winya's collarbone. I couldn't help but get closer and sniff. Duan Winya saw this and said in a flat tone, "Did I forgive you so that you could act coquettishly?" Although he said this, he hugged me tighter. I was drowsy in his arms, until a familiar voice came, "Uncle, why are you with Yu Xia?" I opened my eyes sleepily from Duan Winya's neck. Liang Sun was looking at me with a complicated expression, and Song Anren was standing beside him. Duan Winya glanced at him. "Do I need to report to you who I'm with?" Liang Sun pursed his lips tightly, and his gaze landed on the hand with which Duan Winya was holding me. "Yu Xia is drunk. right, she's like this. She gets drunk easily after drinking a little. Uncle, I know her, give her to me, otherwise, she might cause trouble for you when she goes crazy later. Hearing this, I was startled. I opened my eyes wide and looked at Duan Winya, who showed no sign of letting go, and then at Liang's son. Our eyes met, and I instinctively blurted out 2 words, asshole. Liang's son, his face suddenly darkened. His act of relying on others' power immediately fell apart. And I hurriedly hugged Duan Wenya's neck tightly. I pleaded in a low voice, don't give me to him to carry. Duan Wenya's chest vibrated with laughter. He said the words let's go and then took a step and left. 14. When I regained my memory again, it was the next morning. I rubbed my dizzy head and went downstairs while building up my mental strength. I had already prepared to be severely scolded by my father. But seeing my father's unusually kind expression was even scarier than seeing a ghost. Xia, did you sleep well? Me? I didn't dare to speak. Not at all. My daughter is really promising. She's going to marry the most outstanding person in the circle. After thinking for a few seconds, I asked tentatively, are you planning to arrange for me to marry that 57-year-old director Wang? My father forced a smile for a moment. You're really different when you're with Wenya. Dad thinks you've gone from being stupid to cute. I froze in place. Suddenly, some forgotten fragments flooded into my mind. Last night, Duan Wenya dropped me off at my doorstep. I struggled with the seatbelt. When Duan Wenya leaned over to help me unbuckle it, I suddenly looked up. The corner of my mouth brushed past his lips. Duan Wenya didn't move. His gaze slowly shifted from my eyes down to the area below the tip of my nose. In the confined space, our slightly heavy breathing only added to the rising atmosphere of intimacy. Just when I thought Duan Wenya was about to do something, he suddenly pressed my chin and pulled back to create some distance. He gave a mocking smile. I won't give you a second chance to take advantage of me without any commitment. The alcohol had brought out my lustful side. I stared longingly at Duan Wenya's lips and pursed my mouth in disappointment. I still remembered that this old man was quite good at kissing. As if to prevent me from kissing him on the way into the house, he helped me walk with extreme restraint. My father was surprised to see Duan Wenya, but he quickly put on a smile. I couldn't remember exactly what they said. The only thing I remembered was that Duan Wenya leaned down close to my ear and spoke in a low voice that only the two of us could hear. Agree to marry me, and I'll let you kiss me. As if afraid that I wouldn't agree, he added an incentive, as much as you want. Did he think I was a fool? The word marriage snapped me back to a momentary state of clarity. Duan Wenya, who had driven away the young master Dong for me tonight, made my heart flutter for a moment. Moreover, it was inevitable that my father would force me into a marriage alliance to gain benefits for himself. In the end, in front of everyone, I agreed to the marriage alliance with Duan Wenya in a completely sober state. Yes, it was a marriage alliance, in my view at that time. Even with a bit of affection as an added condition, it was still a compromise type of marriage in my definition. It was a decision made after weighing the pros and cons. It wasn't until much later, when I witnessed every single thing Duan Wenya did for me as an act of love, that I realized perhaps a little later, or perhaps if I had the right to choose, but the result wouldn't change. Generally speaking, under any pre-conditions, the conclusion remained the same. I would eventually fall in love with Duan Wenya and marry him. 15. Grandma Liang was probably feeling guilty. After that mix-up with the room card, she hadn't contacted me at all. Only after the engagement date between Duan Wenya and me was set did she finally give me a call after a long time. She asked me to come over for lunch. When I arrived, I found that Liang Sun was also there, and Duan Wenya was still on his way back. Grandma Liang came to greet me with some uncoordinated movements. Haha. Xia, you're here. Haha, ha. Looking at her forced smile, I was at a loss for words. When only Liang Sun and I were left in the living room, he frowned and spoke. Did you come here today to discuss the engagement? I nodded, not wanting to say more to him. You Xia, do you think you're being reasonable? There was irritation in the boy's voice. I looked at him in confusion. I admit that I've realized I like you a bit now, but if you team up with the elders to force me into marriage, it will only have the opposite effect. Do you understand? I was too stunned to speak. Liang Sun stood up and dusted off his hoodie, looking down at me. He still had that unapproachable attitude. Forcing me into marriage won't work. If I don't show up at the engagement banquet, it will be you who loses face. I opened my mouth silently and then closed it again. This was the Liang family's place. Would it be inappropriate for me to scold him now? 16. Liang Sun's pride finally crumbled at the dinner table. With the clear sound of chopsticks hitting the ground, Liang Sun's eyes trembled slightly. What did you say? Uncle is engaged to Yu Xia. He let out a mocking laugh. Don't be ridiculous, they're not even from the same generation. Duan Wenye casually replied with an soon you two won't be of the same generation either. Remember to call her aunt. I was still debating whether to give Liang Sun a kind and tolerant look as an elder when he pushed his bowl away and went back to his room with a dark face. 17. Duan Wenye drank some wine in the evening. As soon as he got in the car, he asked the driver to raise the partition. I immediately became alert. My tentative words was interrupted by Liang Sun, who came running out. Uncle, are you sure you want to marry her? Duan Wenye leaned lazily against the seat and rolled down the car window. Liang Sun looked past him at me. There was a contemptuous smile in his eyes, as if he had already predicted my miserable defeat. Uncle, you might not know that the person you're about to marry used to like me in a very humble way. Duan Wenye bit on a cigarette, lowered his head, and lit it with a lighter. It was hard to tell what he was feeling. For some reason, I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Liang Sun was very satisfied with my reaction and smiled. His tone was even more leisurely. Yu Xia has a notebook filled with every single thing about her secret crush on me. Uncle, with your status, are you sure you want to marry someone who used to like your nephew, a cheapskate? With every word he said, my hand resting on the seat tightened a little more. After all, Liang Sun was Duan Wenye's nephew. The probability of him siding with me was much lower than the probability of him believing his own nephew, especially when such words were so humiliating. Duan Wenye rested the hand holding the cigarette on the window ledge. He slightly raised his wrist, motioning for me to look at Liang Sun. When Liang Sun and I made eye contact, he smiled confidently. See, Xia, Uncle wants you to get out and come with me. How could he possibly take a liking to you? Duan Wenye ignored him and just asked me. Did you hear everything he said to insult you just now? Not sure what he was up to. I nodded silently. The light in front of me was blocked by a shadow. Duan Wenye leaned in, and the corner of his mouth curled up in a barely noticeable smile. His voice was alluring. Yu Xia, don't be a coward, fight back. I was stunned and looked up at him in disbelief. I'm not just here to stand up for you. At the same time, I also give you enough confidence to do whatever you want. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he raised his eyebrows. Like right now, wouldn't it be more satisfying if you fought back yourself? I was convinced by his words. Somehow, I really leaned closer to the window, but before I spoke, I turned back to Duan Wenye and asked hesitantly, will you really back me up? The man let out an from his nose. I pursed my lips and looked at Liang Sun firmly. My hand resting on the windowsill unconsciously clenched into a fist. After a moment of strange silence go to hell, Liang Sun, the biggest stain on my life is that notebook. Tomorrow, I'll buy a new notebook and write down every curse word for you in it. Liang Sun's expression changed suddenly, as if he hadn't expected Duan Wenye to react this way. He stared at me intently, his face as cold as ice. 18. Even after the car had driven for a while, I was still immersed in the relief of the breast being saved. I didn't realize at all that I had leaned all the way over just to scold Liang Sun, and now, I was still kneeling on Duan Wenye's lap, feeling better. There was a hint of cynicism in the man's leisurely smile. This question was very ambiguous. I didn't know if he was asking about how I felt after scolding Liang Sun or about my current position. Just as I was about to climb down calmly, the driver hit the brakes at the wrong time. I fell directly into Duan Wenye's arms. I felt something soft pressing against my lower back, so I reached out to touch it. Where are you touching? Duan Wenye caught my hand with a half-smile. Since I was still sitting on his lap, I blurted out without thinking. I just felt something very soft. It should have been the cigarette case in his pocket. Duan Wenye slowly raised his eyes, and his hand holding mine felt hot. Are you sure it's what's in your hand? The car was so dim that there was almost no light. When I looked down at my hand, the passing streetlights cast light on the seat. Everything was laid bare. I almost let out a scream. I withdrew my hand as quickly as possible. I tried to get off Duan Wenye's lap, but he wouldn't let me. He held my waist and pulled me back into his arms. Duan Wenye was settling the score. You said it was soft. I felt like crying but had no tears. No, then what was it? Seeing that Duan Wenye was going to keep pressing this issue, without thinking, I reached out and covered the lower half of his face. Stop talking, okay. Instead of pulling my hand away, Duan Wenye held me and changed our position. He made me straddle him. Do you think this can stop me from talking? His warm breath tickled my palm. not just my palm, also the tip of my heart. His slightly deep voice came through my fingers. I withdrew my hand and looked at him awkwardly. Duan Winya looked flirtatious. Maybe we should find another way to shut me up. The moonlight shone on his eyebrows and eyes, giving him an elegant and clear look like a cedar in a cold stream. My irregular heartbeat easily shattered the disguise of my pretended calmness. I was sure I was seduced by him. When I came to my senses, I had already leaned in, holding onto his shoulders. Our eyes both landed on each other's lips. Until they met, I recalled the entire process of our kiss on that confusing night, but probably because Duan Winya had been drinking. This time he took the initiative almost immediately. He held my chin with one hand and forcefully pried open my mouth. He adjusted the angle from time to time, or he would let go for a moment, turn his head to the other side, and then kiss me again. In the middle of it, I regained a moment of clarity. I pushed against his shoulders. The driver, he can't hear us, Duan Winya cut in, his breathing slightly unsteady, again. Then I was pulled back into the trap of indulgence. 19, in the end. Liang Sun didn't end up with Song Yanran. He told me this news himself. At that time, I was doing group work at Maker Coffee. The chair opposite me was pulled out, and someone sat down. I heard from Grandma that you and Duan Winya are planning to get the marriage certificate soon. It was the first time I heard Liang Sun call him by his full name. I looked up at him. The dejection in the boy's eyes couldn't be hidden by all his external advantages. I once had a dream, Yu Xia. He smiled and shook his head. In the dream, because of misunderstandings, I did a lot of things that made you sad. The only consolation was that in the dream, you still liked me. He lowered his eyes, and his gentle smile was mixed with bitterness. It turns out that dreams really are the opposite of reality. In reality, before I've even done anything to you, you already don't like me anymore. I didn't have the energy to argue about these useless things with him. Suddenly remembering something, I took out a ring engraved with the initial of my name from my bag. I was about to return it to Liang Sun. Looking at the ring, he said calmly, "So you've even bought couple rings." It was a simple sentence, but I felt like I didn't understand it. What? Liang Sun said, "I saw the same men's ring on Duan Winya last time, but I never thought the women's ring would be in your hand." I felt as if I was in the deep sea, and the feeling of suffocation completely enveloped me. Liang Sun's words came from far, far away, taking me back to even more distant memories. In my previous life, I vaguely sensed that Liang Sun had fallen in love with Song Yanran. Although I was disappointed, I didn't want to interfere in their relationship. Just as I was planning to find a suitable time to ask Liang Sun about it, I received a gift box that claimed to be from the Liang family. Inside was this very ring. I thought it was a ring from Liang Sun. I never imagined that it was from Duan Winya. So that night, when Liang Sun came to see me, I jumped into his arms excitedly and confessed boldly, "Liang Sun, I like you so much." Liang Sun didn't push me away. After a long silence, he hugged me back. "I know, what about you?" I looked up from his arms and asked hopefully. Liang Sun pressed me back into his arms, so I couldn't see his expression. "I've never said I don't like you." That was his ambiguous answer. The subtlety in it was ignored by my active dopamine at that time. It could be said that without this ring, most likely, my engagement with Liang Sun wouldn't have happened. "Yu Xia." Liang Sun's questioning voice brought me back to my senses. I looked at the ring again and then put it on my finger. "What did you call me?" Liang Sun didn't realize I was setting a trap for him. "Yu Xia." I gave him a smile that I hadn't shown for a long time. "Remember, you'll have to call me aunt soon." 20. Liang Sun left without saying a word. I nodded in satisfaction at his back. I was sure he wouldn't come back to pester me anymore. I didn't immediately ask Duan Winya about the ring, but there was indeed a question that I couldn't figure out. Since he was the one who gave the ring, why didn't he say so? I stared at the ring, searching my memory for impressions of Duan Winya from my previous life. Finally, I remembered that on the day I confessed to Liang Sun. When I looked up from Liang Sun's arms, over his shoulder, I saw a Cullinan facing us, but because it was too dark, before I could see the person in the car clearly, the car started and drove away. It drove into the lonely autumn night. Not long ago, I saw an identical Cullinan in Duan Winya's garage. I thought, it wasn't that he didn't speak up, he had seen me in love, so he didn't want to try again. 21. It wasn't until the engagement day that Duan Winya put on the ring. The engagement banquet went smoothly from beginning to end. The only thing that bothered me a bit was the words of a friend I met during my internship. Her husband is 7 or 8 years older than her. She looked at me with a complicated gaze, as if she were someone with experience. "Sister, Be more tolerant of your husband." As she spoke, she patted me on the shoulder. I looked at her in confusion. "I'm giving you a heads up in advance. He's older than you, and he'll get old before you do." "You know, what kind of nonsensical statement is this?" My little sister simply stopped beating around the bush and whispered to me with a sigh, "The older a man gets, the less capable he is. My husband is like that. Just when I'm about to get into the mood, he's already satisfied and lying there. It's even shorter than the time it takes me to read a short story." My husband told me that all men are like this. It was the first time I'd heard about such a thing, although I was surprised. I still thought about it, realizing it wasn't a small matter. I sincerely asked for advice. "Is there a way to fix it?" My little sister shook her head and blushed as she said, "You can't count on men. I have an electronic partner now. I can send you the link later. You should give it a try. It's definitely more useful than a real person." I'd thought there was some great tonic for the body, but I didn't dwell on it and opened the door to go out. Duanwinya was standing right at the door. Judging by his appearance, he must have just arrived, so I didn't think much of it. On the night of the engagement, Duanwinya hardly let me drink any alcohol. He blocked all the people who came to offer a toast, but just when my favorability towards my fiancé had skyrocketed, it plummeted right back down. In Duanwinya's apartment, he pinned me down on the sofa, his knee also pressed against my leg. He raised his hand and gently patted my cheek. "Tell me, what kind of partner is this electronic one?" The man's voice, tinged with alcohol, was slightly hoarse and sexy. I immediately realized that he had heard everything. "I didn't want to buy it," I retorted in a small voice. "I originally just wanted to buy you some tonics in advance." If I had known this sentence would almost cost me half my life, I would have admitted to the electronic product rather than refute him thoughtlessly. Later, I don't know when we moved from the sofa to the bedroom, I buried my face in the pillow. His hand, wearing the same style ring, covered mine. As our fingers intertwined, the rings gently rubbed and collided, but soon, he turned me over. Although I really don't want to use the word gallop at this moment, Duanwinya is in exactly that state. Like electronic products, my throat was almost hoarse from crying. My self-preservation instinct made me shake my head desperately. "No, I don't like them. I only like you." At this moment, it was as if a pirate ship had suddenly come to a stop. The state of stillness was a very strange experience. "Really?" Duanwinya looked down at me. I felt a little shy. "We can't go through with this engagement," I sniffled, then shakily put my hands on his shoulders and wrapped my arms around his neck. I replied with a sob, "Really, Duanwinya? Today is the first day I've admitted to myself that I like you." That wasn't entirely accurate. If I traced back, I'd find that I liked him yesterday, a month ago. And there were also moments when my heart fluttered and stages when my favor for him grew, but I only bared my heart today, so I still choose to regard today as the first day I like him. In response, I received a long and somewhat greedy kiss from Duanwinya. Between breaths, he admitted in a low voice, "Not for me." A long time ago, the next afternoon, I sat in the study and opened the new diary I had already prepared. I wrote down yesterday's date, then, somewhat defiantly, I wrote, "On the first day of liking Duanwinya, I almost lost half my life. The risk factor is quite high. Today, I plan to reduce my liking for him by 0.1%. If he can let me have a good, undisturbed sleep, my liking for him can increase by 10%. When a ray of afternoon sunlight moved from the tip of my nameless finger to the tip of my index finger, I finally put down my pen. Before closing the notebook, I thought of something. I turned to the introduction page of the notebook and carefully wrote a few words. Record moments of heart fluttering. Story 2. When the cotton mill was allocating housing, my fiancé tricked me into bed. I awoke with a mix of soreness and joy. He said he wanted to give my spot to Bai Yuiguang, a divorced single mother returning to the city, because she needed it more and I still had him, Enan. "We've grown up with Sister Xylan, we need to help her," he insisted. Naively, I believed him, until, heavily pregnant, I overheard him confessing his love to Bai Yuiguang. It turned out he married me just so Sister Xylan could settle down in the city. I stumbled into the water in a daze. Waking from this nightmare, Jiang Muchuan was sitting by the bed, repeating the same words from my dream. "Enan, Sister Xylan has had a tough life, now that she's back alone with her child. We really should help her." I woke up gasping for breath to hear those words, identical to those in my dream, lingering in the air that was thick with an embarrassing odor. Jiang Muchuan played with my hair, his touch gentle and lingering, but I felt a chill all over. I couldn't stop shivering. Was it a dream, or a glimpse of a future reality? Why would I dream such a thing? Confused and upset, I dodged Jiang Muchuan's kiss, made up an excuse, and left on shaky legs. Jiang Muchuan didn't stop me. Just before I closed the door, his words floated to me through the chilly autumn air. Don't forget about the housing allocation at the factory this afternoon. I know Anan is the kindest and wouldn't want Sister Xylan to suffer any longer. I wandered the streets in a daze, replaying the events from the dream. After I gave my spot to Zhao Xylan, she and her child moved into a new home quickly, and I found out I was pregnant. I married Jiang Muchuan smoothly, the man I had loved since childhood. Carrying a new life within me, I harbored joyful expectations but came home early one day close to delivery, only to have my dreams shattered. Jiang Muchuan was confessing his love to Zhao Xylan in our marital home, saying he had loved her all these years. He said he married me just to provide Zhao Xylan a home. His eyes were red, filled with repressed and insane love, humbly begging Zhao Xylan to let him take care of her and her child. Eventually, they kissed, unable to part, and I, in a daze, heavily pregnant, fell into the water, leading to a fatal accident for both me and my unborn child. Jiang Muchuan and I were neighbors, having grown up together. He would stand up for me against local bullies and covered for me when I stained my clothes during my period, driving me home on his bike. When I was 16, my parents died trying to save Uncle Jiang, to keep the house we lived in. I dropped out of high school and took over my mother's job, becoming Jiang Muchuan's fiancé in the process. Uncle Jiang arranged our marriage without a word from him, no objections, no refusal. I always thought he liked me too, but now, I'm not so sure. Sitting numbly in the cold wind, my heart felt half frozen, yet my mind started to clear. No matter what, the house was what mattered most to me now. It was the slot my mother left me for giving up my education. I couldn't let anyone else have it. I arrived early at the factory's property department meeting room. The door was slightly ajar. Laughter and teasing echoed down the empty corridor from Jiang Muchuan and his friends. Chuan, you finally got the factory's beauty. Huh, keep it down. I just felt bad for her pining over me for so many years, thinking she was being subtle about it. Just as Xylan needed a house and we were engaged, I thought why not just go ahead with it. You have no idea how happy she was when she was with me. Someone asked, so, Chuan, who do you really like now? Would your father peel your skin off if he knew you tricked Feng Yan'an into bed? Jiang Muchuan clicked his tongue. Nonsense. I've liked Zhao Xylan since I was young. You all know that, even if she's divorced and has a child, you still like her. Of course, if it wasn't for my parents' reluctance to accept her, I wouldn't have married Feng Yan'an. If I can't marry the one I love, I might as well marry someone who loves me. At least she's obedient and pleasing to look at, right? Jiang Muchuan answered decisively. When he talked about me, there was a faint disdain on his face. Others praised him as a rare romantic in the textile factory. They said that Zhao Xylan was lucky to be loved by him, a blessing cultivated over 800 years, and me, lacking self-respect and self-love, I deserved to be played. I stood outside, clutching my palm tightly, daring not to make a sound. Uncle Jiang is the deputy factory manager, and the others inside were all children of department heads. Falling out with them now would do me no favors in getting a house. I tried to calm my breathing, but humiliation and regret surged like a tide. So, the dream was real. My years of affection for Jiang Muchuan were just a joke to him. If it weren't for the house left by my mother, if there wasn't Zhao Xylan, to him, I was just a compromise. My chest heaved violently. Suddenly, a hand as white as jade rested on my shoulder. I turned around. It was Zhao Xylan's smiling face, holding her child. With gratitude and concern, she said, Nianan, thank you for being willing to give up the house for me. Why do you look so pale? Are you alright? I stared at her blankly. Jiang Muchuan's sister Xylan, who had suffered a lot in the countryside, was dressed in the latest wool coat and scarf from the state-run store. Her child's bib was worth half a month of my salary. She stood there gracefully, making me, in my work uniform, seem even more rough and disheveled. That's right, someone had said the day she came back, I looked more like the one who had come back from the countryside. But how could I not be disheveled? Jiang Muchuan, to show support for her, borrowed all my fabric coupons and half of my food coupons. These days I've been eating rice porridge and nibbling on pickles. Several times I nearly fainted at my workstation, but he said Xylan and her child needed support, and their stepmother wouldn't give them their fair share. We should save and help them get through this. Nianan, Xylan has had a tough life. She used to be so proud. we can't let others look down on her. Jiang Muchuan said so, but he forgot, or rather didn't care. If it weren't for my parents saving Uncle Jiang, I would be a university student like him, not a high school dropout working shifts in a factory, tirelessly running around for a mere few tens of yuan. I, too, am suffering. I held back the tears in my eyes. I smiled at her. It's nothing, Sister Xylan, just choked by the wind a bit. My tears, they shouldn't be spent here. Their voices carried into the room. Jiang Muchuan hurried out. Seeing it was me and Zhao Xylan, he stiffened for a moment, but quickly, he reached out to embrace me. Greeting Zhao Xylan into the room with a normal expression, I laughed sarcastically. He really put on a good show. The group of people waiting to be allocated houses gradually arrived. The head of the housing department, Chief Liu, cleared his throat and began to read the list. When my name was called, Jiang Muchuan interrupted, Uncle Liu, Nianen and I are about to get married, and I'd like to give my spot to Sister Xylan. Do you think it's okay? He reassured me by squeezing my palm and gave me a wink. Chief Liu laughed. Of course, you can. No. I pulled away forcefully, raising my voice. Chief, this is my spot, and I'm not giving it away to anyone else. For a moment, the air in the meeting room seemed to freeze. Jiang Muchuan's friends looked at me in disbelief. Zhao Xylan, who had been all smiles, turned pale. Jiang Muchuan suppressed the anger in his voice. Uncle Liu, there might be some misunderstanding. Let me talk to Nianen again. He tried to pull me to the water room at the end of the hallway. I didn't move. Instead, I stared at the people in the meeting room, tears rolling down my face. My mother started working in the factory at 14 and spent over 20 years there just to get this apartment. I have no parents left. This apartment is the last thing they left for me, and I'm not giving it away to anyone else. The humiliation of being betrayed and played washed over me at that moment. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe, my eyes red as I apologized to Zhao Xylan. I'm sorry, Sister Xylan. Muchuan said you've had a tough time. I know it hasn't been easy for you, but I really can't give this spot to you. She was at a loss, amidst the surprised or scrutinizing looks from everyone around. She felt so embarrassed she wished she could disappear. I lowered my head to wipe my tears, hiding the coldness in my eyes. My name and the house were now linked together. Stamped with the big red seal of the cotton mill, Jiang Muchuan pulled me to apologize to Zhao Xylan. He didn't seem too happy, but still forced a smile to reassure her. I'm sorry, Sister Xylan. I'll think of another way to help you with the housing and residency. Zhao Xylan also smiled, standing in the wind with her child. Her eyes were slightly red, tears almost falling. She glanced at me with a choked voice. It's okay, Muchuan. I shouldn't have asked for little Sister Anne's apartment. It's my fault, don't fight over me. The child in her arms started to cry along. She looked at us apologetically and hurriedly left with her child. Her figure was as frail as a fallen leaf in autumn. Jiang Muchuan watched her for a long time. With things set in stone, Jiang Muchuan hurried to find a new house for Zhao Xylan. His brows furrowed, his expression somber as he looked at me. Once I've settled Sister Xylan, I'll come back to settle things with you. But Feng Nianen, I never thought you could be so petty. You've disappointed me so much. You don't need to come to the family dinner tomorrow night. This family dinner was supposed to introduce me to the Jiang family relatives, a small celebration before our wedding. Being banned from attending was nothing short of humiliating. Logically, I should have felt sad and upset, but right now, my mind was full of dreams of the future. I absent-mindedly listened and even nodded. Okay. It's good that I also need some time to verify the truth of the dream. You, Jiang Muchuan, choked with anger, turned and strode away. I paused for a moment, then walked in the opposite direction. In my dream, after my death, my soul was forced to follow Jiang Muchuan. I watched him marry Zhao Xylan within a year of my death. Now I'm also remarried. Don't you dare look down on her. Zhang's parents could hardly be pleased with this situation. He had fallen out with his parents, resigned from the cotton mill, and moved south with Zhao Xylan and their child to make a living. He tenderly cradled Zhao Xylan's face. Xylan, let's start over somewhere where no one knows us. I didn't care about their vows and promises. What really mattered to me was that after they moved south, they coincidentally experienced the nation's economic reform and opening up, catching the tailwinds of the free market. They started a small business, became individual entrepreneurs, step by step. They made a fortune, becoming one of those families worth hundreds of thousands. Meanwhile, the state-owned cotton mill, once a guaranteed job with high benefits, was on the decline. They stopped distributing apartments and no longer took in employees' children. There were even layoffs. If all of this was true, I needed to carve out my own path before then. I went to the busiest street nearby. There were quite a few individual vendors, but fearing accusations of speculative trading, I had never dared to get close. Now, taking a closer look, I realized the items were indeed cheaper than those in stores. Not only was the fabric quality good, but there were also many designs and decorations I had never seen before. Seeing me lost in thought, the vendor auntie leaned in mysteriously. "Miss, these clothes are all shipped from the south. They're all the latest Hong Kong goods, very fashionable." I picked a few items and casually asked, "So, they don't care anymore?" The auntie whispered with a smile, "The South stopped caring a long time ago. Our policies here will take a while longer. My son has sorted out the procedures in the South. It's just this place left. Now, the officials turn a blind eye as long as you don't overdo it." I visited a few more stalls on different streets. The responses were similar. It seemed that the rumors were mostly true. I returned to the Jiang family's house to pack up my personal belongings that I had brought. Looking around, the air still carried a faint scent. He had whispered many embarrassing words when he sneaked me in here. From the shy heart of a girl a few days ago, to the calm heart of today, waking from the dream seemed to happen in an instant. Fortunately, I didn't bring much. After packing up briefly, I was ready to leave within minutes. The moment I opened the door, I ran into Jiang Muchuan, who was about to bring Zhao Xilan inside. This house was a welfare benefit designated for young cadres by the factory. It seemed that they planned to let her live here. It should have been this way from the start. Why did they have to set their sights on me? Seeing the things in my hand, Jiang Muchuan unconsciously pursed his lips. "Xilan, you go in first. I have something to discuss with Anan." Before the door closed, Zhao Xilan's probing gaze swept over me. Then Jiang Muchuan cornered me against the wall, his tone impatient. "Feng Yanan, what are you making a fuss about now?" "I'm not making a fuss. Jiang Muchuan, let's call off our engagement." I quietly looked at him, opening my palm. Inside it was a glossy jade bracelet. "You came back just in time. I'm returning this to you." This was the engagement token from back then, and now it was time to return it to its original owner. The winter in Suzhou was very cold. My hand, pulled from my pocket, quickly turned ice cold, but I waited a long time. Jiang Muchuan did not take it. I looked up, puzzled. "Why won't you take it?" He frowned, a hint of anger in his eyes. "Nianan, there's a limit to throwing a tantrum. Don't go overboard." I sighed, finding Jiang Muchuan difficult to communicate with for the first time. "I'm serious. I'm not throwing a tantrum. Didn't you say that one should be magnanimous? Since you brought Sister Xilan home, isn't it better for me to leave voluntarily?" "I don't understand. Isn't this what he wanted?" Jiang Muchuan did not respond, his gaze lowered, staring intently at the palm of my hand. The north wind blew through the open windows. I couldn't stand the cold anymore and withdrew my hand first. Jiang Muchuan's expression softened slightly, but his tone was still icy. "Don't threaten me with breaking off our engagement every now and then. You know I don't fall for that. As for me and Sister Xilan, it's not what you think. I know you really want to marry me, but let's wait until I've settled things with Sister Xilan." "Okay." I fell silent, realizing it was futile to talk further with Jiang Muchuan. I had nothing more to say to him. Whether he wants the bracelet or not, returning it to Uncle Jiang and Aunt Song is the same. Having realized this, I pushed him aside and was about to leave. Just then, someone came downstairs. In the narrow corridor, Jiang Muchuan watched me. He didn't stop me. Jiang Muchuan leaned back on the couch. His mind was filled with Feng Yan's cold gaze as she left. He was somewhat distracted. Zhao Xilan smiled, handing him a glass of water with gratitude on her face. "Xiaochuan, thank you for lending me your house and helping me with the luggage. Once I find a job, I will definitely pay the rent on time." Sister Xilan is still as gentle and beautiful as I remember. Her woolen coat outlined her graceful figure, completely different from Feng Yanan, who only likes checkered shirts and small floral prints. He remembered last night's madness with some relish. Suddenly, he regretted speaking so harshly just now. With Feng Yan's introverted nature, she was probably hiding in a corner, secretly wiping away tears. That was how she was when her parents died, pretending she was fine, only to be found later, her face pale, crying almost to the point of fainting. After all, she is my wife-to-be. For the sake of a harmonious marital life in the future, I should take her to tomorrow night's family dinner. That's what Jiang Muchuan thought. He lifted his head and drank the water in one gulp, a smile unconsciously forming on his lips. Zhao Xilan's heart skipped a beat, and she gently said, "Remember to apologize to Sister N later. I didn't mean to take her house." Just thought since you two are getting married soon. It would be inconvenient for her and you to live together while I have a child." She choked up a bit, her eyes slowly reddening, hearing his mother's crying. 1-year-old Zhao Zishuan toddled over, grabbing his mother's skirt with one hand and holding on to Jiang Muchuan with the other. He stumbled and said, "Mommy, don't cry, Daddy, kiss Mommy." Zhao Zilan blushed deeply, hurriedly picking up the child. "Sorry. He just learned to talk and can't quite distinguish yet." Jiang Muchuan didn't mind much. Instead, he bent down and lovingly looked at Zhao Ziyan. He and his mother looked very alike, both had fair skin and were equally bright. In Jiang Muchuan's youthful dreams, he and Sister Zilan also had such a happy family, although it was no longer possible between them. But that didn't stop Jiang Muchuan from liking the child. He instinctively followed Sister Zilan's cue in his thoughts. Feng Yan'an was somewhat dissatisfied. Such a lovely child. Why couldn't she just make things easier? Thinking of how she lost her temper and recklessly spoke of breaking off the engagement, Jiang Muchuan's face gradually darkened. How could she be so thoughtless? In the end, he decided to impose a minor punishment as a stern warning. He wouldn't let Feng Yan'an attend the family banquet, teaching her a lesson that was neither too harsh nor too lenient, to make her understand that when living together as a couple in the future, one cannot always quarrel with their partner over every little thing. When I walked out of the dormitory building, it was already dark. I didn't stop walking, and managed to submit my application for unpaid leave before the factory closed. Since I arrived late, only Sister Lu was left in the office. She had watched me grow up from a young age and was surprised. "Anan, aren't you about to marry Jiang soon? Why are you applying for unpaid leave at this time?" I didn't want Jiang Muchuan to know about my decision to leave, so, taking advantage of the convenience of just having walked in the cold wind, I sniffed, pulling out a forced smile. "Aunt Lu, you must have heard about what happened in the property department this afternoon. I want to leave and head south to seek refuge with distant relatives. Can you keep this a secret for me?" Gossip spread quickly among the older people at the factory like Aunt Lu. She slapped her forehead, suddenly realizing. Her face also showed a bit of indignation on my behalf. "All right, I promise you, I won't tell anyone about this. I used to think Jiang was a college student who wouldn't do such shameless things. Now it seems that all men are the same. If it weren't for your parents, he might not have even gotten into that college. Pa, such an ungrateful wretch." Aunt Lu became more agitated as she spoke. At the height of her emotions, she rolled up her sleeves, wishing she could drag me there and then to trample that scumbag. I couldn't help but smile warmly inside. "Thank you, Aunt Lu. Once I get settled in the south, I'll definitely send local specialties back to you." She puffed up her chest. "Oh, don't be so formal with me. I've always disliked dragging things out." Aunt Lu said that the procedure for unpaid leave would take 7 days. The next morning, I took a bag of fruit and went straight to Zhang's parents' house. Holding the steaming mug of brown sugar water that Zhang's mother handed me, I said, "Uncle, Auntie, I want to call off the engagement." In the misty steam, Zhang's father reacted most strongly, grabbing a wooden stick and intending to drag the unfilial son back from the factory for a beating. "Anan, don't worry, as long as your Aunt Song and I are still around, we won't let him bully you." I knew they genuinely cared for me. Jiang Muchuan had been beaten the night before. Uncle Jiang had been harsh, and it was said that today he was limping to work, but I still shook my head. "Uncle, if I marry Jiang Muchuan, we are supposed to spend a lifetime together. There will come a day when you are no longer here. What should I do then? He doesn't like me, and now, I don't want to be with him either." Actually, Zhang's parents were well aware that Jiang Muchuan and I were mismatched. He was a rare university graduate among the workers' children, and as the youngest cadre assigned to the factory, his future was promising, whereas I, just a humble textile worker, hadn't even finished high school. How could two people with such different lives and experiences be happy together? Zhang's parents remained silent, offering no answer. I sighed and played my trump card. "Uncle, Auntie, I think the spirits of my parents in heaven wouldn't want me to waste my life like this." The matter of my parents was a thorn in all our sides. With a thud, Zhang's father dropped the stick and slumped down, his back visibly bending. Zhang's mother also turned her head away, silently wiping tears. "Sorry, it was our family's fault." I returned the jade bracelet to Zhang's mother and finally obtained the document that annulled the engagement. Leaving with that light piece of paper, I paused at the door, hesitated, and then turned back, intending to say something. Zhang's mother, who was seeing me off, suddenly brightened up, looking at me with hope. hoping I would change my mind, but I only glanced at her and said, "Auntie, please don't tell Jiang Muchuan about the engagement just yet. I don't want him to trouble me again." "Alright." After saying that, I stepped over the threshold with a sense of relief. From then on, Jiang Muchuan and I had nothing to do with each other. This time, I refuse to end up like in my dreams. I'm heading south to change my fate, to catch the east wind and rise swiftly to great heights. Meanwhile, Jiang Muchuan was distractedly responding to the compliments from his relatives. His gaze kept involuntarily drifting towards the door. The family banquet had started almost half an hour ago. Why hasn't Feng Nianan arrived yet? He had clearly given her the address of the restaurant earlier. Even if he had told her not to come, her legs were her own. If she really wanted to come, would he actually stop her from entering? The banquet hall was bustling with toasts and conversations, yet, he felt inexplicably irritable and slightly unbuttoned his cuff. What was even stranger was, Zhang's father and mother, who adored Feng Nianan, hadn't mentioned her even once tonight. They didn't even bring up the theme of tonight's banquet, which was supposed to be about their engagement. They only mentioned celebrating his return to his hometown with a job after graduating from university, inviting everyone to gather. It was too odd. Shouldn't they be furious, forcing him to apologize to Feng Nianan? Unable to hold back, Jiang Muchuan pulled his mother aside and whispered, "Why hasn't Nianan arrived yet? Should I go pick her up?" His mother's eyes held the familiar look of reproach and disappointment. Unexpectedly, Zhang's mother said nothing. She just glanced at him indifferently and returned to her seat at the banquet. Jiang Muchuan didn't like this feeling of being out of control. He left the restaurant without a word. His long legs bent slightly as he leaned against the wall outside and lit a cigarette. In the swirling smoke, his expression was frosty. He couldn't understand what kind of game his parents and Feng Nianan were playing. Suddenly, a gentle female voice interrupted his thoughts. "Xiaochuan, what are you doing here?" He looked up. There was Zhao Xilan, holding a child, looking at him with surprise. "I just came back and couldn't find the nearby wholesale market. Can you help me find my way?" Without hesitation, Jiang Muchuan put out his cigarette and walked briskly towards his sister Xilan. "Of course, I can." Aunt Lu patted her chest, assuring me that she would handle the leave of absence process for me. She even thoughtfully arranged a 7-day leave for me to rest properly. With Uncle Zhang's tacit approval, the matter was well concealed. Jiang Muchuan hadn't heard a thing. I slept for a whole day and night at home, and when I opened my eyes, I felt refreshed. Soon, very soon, I would leave this place, to start my new life. I yawned, ready to go back to sleep. Suddenly, something flashed through my mind. Remembering the child in my dream who had never been born, my expression changed dramatically. My gaze slowly dropped to my flat belly. I sprang from the bed, wrapped myself up tightly, and headed to the black market, hoping everything was still in time. After my parents' deaths, I became an orphan, sitting alone in the room. I had so often wished there was someone connected to me by blood, so I wouldn't feel so alone. In my dreams, I feel immense love for this child, but now, I cannot bring him into this world. It wouldn't be right to carelessly bring him into such instability. Life is uncertain, and my father does not look forward to this. I will have children, but definitely not now, and the father of the child cannot be such a scoundrel. I gently stroke my belly and silently apologize in my heart. "Next time, could you come to mommy's belly again?" The black market was bustling, everyone dressed tightly and inconspicuously, and my attire did not stand out. After much inquiry, I found a vendor in the most secluded corner. He was a man wearing a hood and a mask. Anxious, I approached him without hesitation and asked, "Do you have that kind of medicine?" The man looked up, revealing slightly upturned dark eyes. "What medicine?" His eyes were actually quite striking. A strange thought flashed through my mind. Ignoring my embarrassment, I got straight to the point in a low voice. "Abortion pills." He glanced at me a few times, then lowered his head, searching for something. "When was the last time you were intimate?" Why is he asking this? I was taken aback and hesitated. 3 days ago. He seemed to chuckle bitterly, stopped what he was doing, and there was a hint of helplessness in his voice. "Young lady, what you really need now isn't an abortion, but contraception. Take this. It's levonorgestrel from overseas, effective for 72 hours. Just take it orally when you get back. There might be some side effects like nausea and vomiting, but that's normal. Don't worry." If I had been able to complete my first year of high school, I would have taken a course called health education. Then I would have realized what a foolish mistake I made today. Unfortunately, I hadn't, and I could only silently take the packet of pills. Hearing the price the man quoted made me gasp in shock. It was almost 2 months of my salary. Seeing my confused face, he sighed again. Stretch out your hand, let me have a look. I looked at him warily. What for? To take your pulse. I still didn't trust him, worried that he might be a charlatan preying on the gullible. But this was the black market. I dared not make a scene. After thinking it over, I hesitantly stretched out my hand. He placed 2 fingers on my wrist. After a moment, he withdrew his hand, and his deep voice came through the black fabric mask. You should be fine, no need to take the medicine, really. Just as I was about to argue, I suddenly heard a familiar voice. Jiang Muchuan was leading Zhao Xilan shopping at a stall. The crowd was bustling, and he held Zhao Xilan tightly by the waist, protecting her in his arms, even though there was a distance between us. Yet, he seemed to sense something, turned his head, and looked in my direction. The moment our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively looked for a place to hide. If Jiang Muchuan found out I was getting contraception, who knows what trouble it could lead to. The stall owner noticed my discomfort and followed my gaze, then opened his arms to me. Come here, hide. His face was generous, with a look that said, if you hug me, you're making a big profit. I glared at him and moved behind him, using him as a shield. Unexpectedly, he turned around, dissatisfied. Hey, you. I sharply stepped on the man's foot. Shut up. He grimaced and inhaled sharply. His voice obediently quieted down, muttering discontentedly under his breath. What kind of person? Jiang Muchuan thought he must be seeing things, otherwise. Why would he see someone who looked a lot like Feng Yan'an in the black market, even wearing the same black cotton-padded jacket that Feng Yan'an often wore? But he quickly diverted his attention, focusing on helping Zhao Xilan pick items, laughing at himself, thinking he must be going mad. Feng Yan'an, that honest and upright woman, wouldn't dare to venture into the black market, nor would she be pulling and tugging with a man. Her secret crush on him for many years was no secret. I kept half a meter's distance from the man. From behind, his head was just at my neck, resembling the closeness of intimate lovers. Jiang Muchuan glanced a few times and then looked away, considerately carrying the things Zhao Xilan had bought. They left. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you. The man waved his hand, about to take back the medicine, but I quickly snatched it. Before leaving, I looked at his washed-out sleeve cuffs and silently gave him an extra 5 yuan, not much. Just a token of appreciation. In the end, I went ahead and bought that contraceptive pill. Hiding beneath him, through a gap in the collar of his coat, I saw a familiar white lab coat and a metal name tag that read Ordinary Physician at Xiqing Second Hospital, Song Yiming. I took the pill as soon as I got home, lying in bed as the doctor advised, cautious of any potential side effects. However, the anticipated discomfort never came. Instead, I felt unusually drowsy and fell into a deep sleep. Dreaming, in the dream, a delicate little girl ran towards me, laughing, and hugged my legs tightly. Mommy, mommy, my name is Enine, remember me, I'll come to find you again. When I awoke, my face was wet with tears. Enine, wait for me. With 3 days left until the paperwork was completed, I bought a train ticket to head south to Yiqing during this time and stayed home to pack my things. Having done all this, I gazed at the small courtyard where I had lived for over 20 years. Feeling somewhat melancholic, every plant, every brick, and every tile here held memories of my parents and me. My father used to push me on a swing by the loofah trellis in the corner of the yard. My mother would bring out a plate of watermelon on summer nights and count the stars with me in her arms. I gently touched the yellowing wooden door. If possible, I truly didn't want to leave, but I knew it wasn't practical. In a few years, policies allowing workers to buy their homes would be implemented. I told myself that this brief separation was to ensure a better reunion. I needed to work hard to earn money, so one day I could buy this courtyard and make it wholly my own. The next day, I went to the factory to ask Uncle Jiang for a letter of introduction. In just a few days, he seemed to have aged considerably, his temples noticeably grayer. I couldn't bear it. Uncle, you must also take care of yourself. I knew that besides being worried about me, he was even more concerned about Jiang Muchuan. These days, he was almost constantly with Zhao Xilan, busily helping her with arrangements, even trying to use his influence to secure her a clerical job at the cotton mill. Of course, Uncle Jiang put a stop to that, but rumors had already spread throughout the factory. Even in these past few days at the courtyard, I could hear the neighbors whispering, the vice director's family is really pitiful. Oh, their son, so obsessed with a divorcee, trying to use connections to get her a desk job in the factory. without inheriting any of the good qualities of his upright father. Indeed, Uncle Jiang had led a life of integrity. The most unorthodox thing he ever did was try to get me an office job, which I refused. I didn't want to exchange my parents' death for that. And I didn't want to put Uncle Jiang in a difficult position, now, on the brink of retirement. His own son had tarnished his reputation. I advised him, "Uncle, children have their own fortunes. Jiang Muchuan and I are grown up. We'll face the consequences of our choices, which have nothing to do with you or Aunt Song." He sighed and nodded, then couldn't help but ask, "Anan, are you really not considering staying, even if we're not one family, staying in Xiqing? Your Aunt Song and I could at least look after you. How can we be at ease with you leaving alone?" I gently shook my head. Smiling, "I really can't, Uncle. I've grown up and want to venture out and see the world. Didn't a great man once say that women can hold up half the sky? In the vast world, I believed that I had great potential." Uncle Jiang couldn't resist my persistence and wrote me a letter of introduction. Along with the letter, he also gave me a landline number. "Anan, this number belongs to the director of U City Textile Factory No. 2. I'm quite acquainted with him. If you ever find it difficult over there, feel free to reach out to him." I was momentarily stunned, my eyes welled up with tears, and I sincerely thanked him. "Uncle Jiang, thank you." Then, without hesitation, I turned and left. I was planning to go to the second floor and inquire about Aunt Lu about the progress of my unpaid leave. Unexpectedly, just as I reached the staircase, I ran straight into Jiang Muchuan waiting there. He stared at me. "Anan, can we talk?" I felt it was an ominous suggestion. At this point, I didn't think there was anything left to say between us. I stepped back silently, refusing him without a word. His expression darkened, just like a few days ago. He cornered me against the wall once more. He glanced towards Uncle Jiang's office upstairs and hissed through clenched teeth, "Feng Nianan, did you go complaining to my dad again? If you have something to say, why hide from me? Why are you still upset after all these days? It's been almost a week, you should calm down by now." He moved closer, the stench of alcohol and smoke repulsive. I frowned, struggling continuously, and said calmly, "Let me go." Ignoring everything, after seeing the redness at the corner of my eyes, he suddenly reached out and touched it. His tone was puzzled. "You cried." Jiang Muchuan's grip loosened a bit. "Sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. Why can't you be more understanding? Always jealous of Sister Xilan. I'm already your fiancé. Ah, I suddenly need him always be your home." I returned home with a grateful and joyful heart, thinking of Jiang Muchuan's odd behavior today. I quickly packed my things and went to the guest house. I also changed my train ticket to tomorrow. As soon as the unpaid leave was processed, I planned to leave, to avoid further complications. Unfortunately, the next day, I was cornered again by Jiang Muchuan at the factory. He was somewhat abject, clutching at me. "Anan, where did you go? I went to your house last night, and you weren't there. Did someone deceive you? Tell me, please." The person who treated me like trash and deceived me was him, and now he was the one worried that others might deceive me. Honestly, I didn't quite understand Jiang Muchuan's thinking. Fortunately, I didn't need to understand it. "Xiachuan, Zixuan is sick. Can you help me take him to the clinic?" Zhao Xilan's voice, tinged with tears, echoed in the empty hallway. Jiang Muchuan's hand on me stiffened, and then without hesitation, he pulled away. "Anan, wait for me. I'll come find you tonight." Once again, Jiang Muchuan chose Zhao Xilan over me. But I wasn't upset at all. Instead, I sighed in relief, facing Zhao Xilan's complex gaze. I even managed a sincere smile. Wusong said, "Hurry, take him away." Yes, I knew Jiang Muchuan wouldn't let things go easily, so I made a special trip to see Zhao Xilan last night. I told her about my plans to visit the factory today and my intention to leave. Sister Xilan has always been smart. See, here she is now, with just a simple suitcase. I bid farewell to my hometown of over 20 years and boarded the train to Yicheng alone. The scenery outside the window flashed by rapidly. The barren trees transformed into lush greenery. Stepping out of the carriage, I was greeted by a warm gust of air. Here, I would start a brand new life. Life away from home was not easy. Yicheng's open policies allowed individuals to rent houses. To save money, I rented a small room in a tube building. During the damp season, clothes hung in the corridor would sometimes take half a month to dry, not to mention the rats as big as my face during the scorching summer, and the flying cockroaches with twin ponytails. Often, I would wake from nightmares to find myself staring into the eyes of a huge rat, followed by a series of chaotic screams. Armed with a purple plastic slipper, I would drive the intruders out of my territory. Life had its hardships, but it also had its sweet moments. It's no exaggeration to say that the clothing styles and patterns from Hong Kong and Macau here were way ahead of those in Suching. Even I, a textile worker, was dazzled by the variety. And then there were the ubiquitous talent markets, private business owners, independently hired workers. Everything was brimming with vitality. It was as if the city was embracing and welcoming every hard-working individual. I quickly found a job in a garment factory that matched my skills. The boss lady visited Hong Kong every fortnight, bringing back the latest popular designs. We, the workers, would then copy the patterns, select the materials, make the clothes, and sell them, adorned with a full set of gold jewelry and delicate curly hair. The boss lady worked tirelessly with us day and night at the sewing machines. She said, "Ladies, policies can change at any time, and we don't know how long we'll be able to keep this job. Let's make money while we can, okay?" Everyone called her Sister Jeanne. It was said she too had come from a humble background in a small fishing village. She was an orphan, her parents having died early, until something called a special zone suddenly appeared and took over her family's land. That was when the wheels of fate began to turn. Sister Jeanne was generous with our wages and even shared a small portion of the profits with us. She said, "If you ladies are working hard for me, naturally, I can't let you down, can I?" The first month I received my salary. It was nearly 10 times what I earned at the cotton factory. My heart was pounding with excitement. Who would argue with money? In response to Sister Jeanne, the sewing machines buzzed and clicked incessantly. After 6 months of work, I had saved an amount I wouldn't even dare dream of back in Suching. Can you believe I was already halfway to becoming a 10,000-aire? But that still wasn't enough. Thinking of Jiang Muchuan's $100,000 stunt in my dreams, I felt a strange sense of competition ignite within me. If he could do it, why couldn't I? Remember, before dropping out of school, Jiang Muchuan was always second best, while I consistently topped the rankings. In terms of intelligence and capability, I, Feng Nianan, am second to none. Recently, Sister Jeanne has been a bit troubled. She's been trying to transition. We've been making clothes for the regular market, while importing higher-end clothes from Hong Kong for a more affluent clientele. She had everything arranged with a partner in Hong Kong, but suddenly, they switched to a Chinese American who had studied in the U.S. She kept muttering some ABC gibberish back and forth, and Sister Jeanne couldn't understand a thing. She playfully complained to us, "What should I do, ladies? Should I hire a translator? That's going to be expensive." Thank goodness for Uncle Jiang. After Jiang Muchuan's college entrance exams during the summer, he heard that fluent English would be advantageous in university. He specially hired an English teacher from Sudai University to tutor Jiang Muchuan at home, and I was also included, supposedly to supervise Jiang Muchuan. After several months of attending these sessions alongside my job, well, let's just say, basic verbal communication is no problem for me. I boldly recommended myself to Sister Jeanne. Her eyes lit up, and decisively. She took me with her to the port city. The cityscape was packed with towering skyscrapers and bustling central streets. Everything was so overwhelming. I felt like Granny Lou entering the Grand View Garden for the first time. Before entering the meeting room, I was so nervous that my palms were sweating. I held a book of clothing terminology that I had specifically bought from a bookstore, reciting it over and over. But Sister Jeanne, casually leaning against the wall with a slim cigarette, reassured me, "Relax, Annie, if it comes to it, we can just hire a translator. We're just giving this a try. Don't feel too pressured." Annie is the English name I chose for myself. I also picked out the name Jennifer for Sister Jeanne. It's simple and memorable, and she likes it a lot. I nodded, but then I noticed Jennifer's other hand, hidden behind her, was also trembling slightly. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, embarrassed. Sister Jeanne playfully scolded me. "After all, I've invested half of my fortune in this. Isn't it normal to be nervous?" "Absolutely, you're right, Sister Jeanne." The little incident outside the meeting room eased my nerves. The anticipated flood of arcane jargon never came. Our counterpart was an elegant woman named Sophia, with curly hair and dressed in a red gown. I was so struck by her beauty that I nearly tripped as I entered the door, staring at her in awe. It was only when she tapped lightly on the glass table that I snapped back to reality and got down to business. Instead of using complex jargon, she focused on asking about the sales of their clothing in U City, the patterns and materials that were popular with mainland customers, and the usual pricing and logistics. Sister Jeanne answered, and I translated. despite some stumbles, we eventually closed the deal. It turns out, a small textile worker like me, with a fine craft and some additional skills, can sit at a negotiation table with highly capable people, just like the newspapers say, and hold her own confidently. Before we left, Sophia gifted us a model of the port city's iconic tram, which made a ringing sound when moved. In return, Sister Jeanne and I gave her Suzhou's famous embroidered silk and the popular snow cream from the mainland. The business went unexpectedly smoothly, with a grand gesture. Sister Jeanne whisked me onto an expensive return flight. On the way there, we had taken a boat, which cost 93 yuan per ticket, a price I already thought was astronomical. I had been seasick during the journey, and Sister Jeanne teased me for being a landlubber. Unexpectedly, our return trip was on a plane ticket costing 270 yuan each. From the airplane window, looking down at the world below, all troubles seemed trivial and easily manageable. I absolutely loved this feeling of freedom. On New Year's Eve, amid the intermittent sounds of firecrackers, we watched the first ever Spring Festival gala on a black and white TV that Sister Jeanne had splurged on. We enjoyed a Huangmei opera sketch titled Eating Chicken and the ethereal singing of artistly. Sister Jeanne, unable to get through on the phone to request a song, was sulky for a while, but then, captivated by the soul-stirring song Nostalgia, she squeezed past us to sit in front of the TV, completely engrossed. Having been away for a year, I started to miss home. I couldn't help running out to make a call to Suzhou, even just to check on everyone's well-being. I called the local store at the end of the alley and asked the owner to summon Auntie Song. "Annie, is that you? How are you doing over there?" Hearing that I was doing well, Auntie Song's voice choked up, and she couldn't help but complain. "You child, why didn't you call to let us know you were settled? Your Uncle Jiang and I have been worried for a long time." Through the winding phone line, I could almost see Auntie Song's eyes brimming with tears. In the end, I promised to call home every month. After calming her down by providing my current address, life swiftly returned to its hectic pace after the Spring Festival. Gradually, I helped Sister Jeanne secure a few more business deals. Impressed by my ability to learn, she sent me to night school for adults. During a celebration, she got me drunk with beer and learned about my past in Sioux City. Not sure what she thought of me, perhaps some pitiful soul. She even offered to cover the cost of my night school. Despite my repeated refusals, I couldn't persuade her otherwise. In the end, she paid half, and I paid the other half. She playfully tapped my nose, saying, "What do you know? I call this an investment. If you bail on me after finishing night school, you'll see what I'll do to you." I just laughed foolishly, hugging her arm like an idiot. The garment export business was booming. We were importing not just from Hong City, but Sophia also took a liking to our exquisite silk and embroidery, as well as the affordable labor. With great foresight, she placed a bulk order for mainland clothing at an irresistible price. Sister Jeanne and I worried, will there really be a market? Sophia gently touched the soft silk, reassuring us, "Don't worry, ordinary clothes go to Southeast Asia. Silk goes to the luxury market. With your beautiful, affordable, high-quality products, I stand to make a profit." Gradually, Sister Jeanne began to delegate her responsibilities to the capable staff who had been with her from the start. Naturally, I took charge of the foreign trade aspect, mainly liaising with Sophia and exploring new markets. We, the small business owners, were extremely busy. Sister Jeanne, forgetting old friends for new, fell for a guy named Chong, a secondary dealer. Wow! With his 8-pack abs, wheat-colored skin, and rugged looks, Sister Jeanne, the little rich woman, was visibly excited. In less than 3 months, she had him wrapped around her finger, completely tamed. She occasionally called him to the factory to help us with lifting, drawing envious glares. Flipping her hair, she'd casually say, "Raise," and no one would spare Chong another glance, almost wishing to kneel under her red dress and cling to her legs, crying for her affection amid cheers. Sister Jeanne nudged my shoulder. "Pretty girl, don't you want to find someone too? I have plenty of good prospects, teachers, doctors, all suited for a good girl like you. We've got the money and the looks. Now's the best time to find love." I couldn't help but twitch my mouth, astonished she'd turned matchmaker. Pushing her away gently, I rolled my eyes. "Sister Jeanne, when do I have the time? It's true we have money and looks, but I'm not free. I can't afford to waste time on anything else." Sister Jeanne chuckled and handed me a restaurant address. "I don't care, I'm giving you Friday night off, with pay. Go if you want, or don't. There are plenty of men. I can find someone even better for you." Yeah, she sounded even more like a matchmaker. I took the note, of course, I didn't go. Lately, I've been receiving letters from Sioux City. Uncle Jiang and Auntie Song sent me money every month, which I saved without touching. Jiang Muchuan also wrote to me, but I didn't read his letters, burning them instead. However, one day, I received a letter from Zhao Xilan. In it, she wrote that she had aborted Jiang Muchuan's child because he refused to marry her. She somehow thought I was to blame and wanted me to talk to him, skeptical, but recalling Auntie Song's choked voice and Uncle John's graying temples. I couldn't help but write a brief letter to Jiang Muchuan. I said, Uncle and Auntie are getting old. Jiang Muchuan, you're their only support. It's time to grow up. In the following 2 months, I didn't receive a single letter. I realized love is a terrifying thing. I lost myself to it before. And now there's the messy entanglement between Jiang Muchuan and Zhao Xilan. I need to keep my distance from love. Using paid leave to meet potential partners seems like a waste, doesn't it? I slept until noon for the first time in ages, then got myself together and hit the streets. Delicious food, beautiful people, scenic views. I lingered endlessly on the bustling commercial streets downtown. Accidentally, I spent nearly half a month's salary. At the same time, I felt my murky spirit become clear. Joy radiated through my entire being, carrying bags big and small. I was just turning into an alley when I saw a pregnant woman leaning against a wall, crying out, "Help me, my water broke." I felt dizzy, ran out of the alley, and called for help. Someone immediately dialed the nearest hospital. A kind-hearted cyclist quickly borrowed a flatbed cart and panting, rushed the pregnant woman to the hospital. We were breathless and collapsed in the hospital corridor. I lost one of my shoes, and my meticulous makeup was smeared all over. The cyclist, too, was a mess, stained all over his face and body. The pregnant woman's family rushed over and couldn't stop thanking us. We exchanged smiles, waved, and left. Exiting the hospital, I was so overwhelmed with joy that I sprained my ankle. The cyclist, pushing the borrowed cart, stopped in front of me. He made a familiar eyebrow-raising gesture. "Come on, I have to return this anyway. I'll see my good deed through and help you out." After returning the cart, the cyclist also took me and my bags on his bike to my apartment building. To my surprise, Sister Zhen and Brother Chong were waiting there. Seeing my sorry state, Sister Zhen rushed up to me. "Good heavens, Anan, how did you end up like this?" She glared menacingly at the cyclist. "Song Yiming, is this how you date?" Swelling up a pretty woman's foot, that name sounded so familiar. Such a melodramatic turn of events. The cyclist and I stared at each other, eyes wide. The next weekend, I took my paid leave, and awkwardly dined with Song Yiming at a restaurant. How awkward. The doctor who I thought had given me abortion pills turned out to be my blind date. What was I supposed to do? Song Yiming coughed lightly, his eyes darting around. It wasn't abortion pills, it was birth control. Turns out I had accidentally voiced my thoughts, and clearly, Song Yiming remembered me too. Even more awkward. I'd rather go back to unpaid overtime than endure this torment. We finished the meal quickly. Song Yiming waved goodbye. "See you," I thought to myself, hopefully never again. But before I could even complete the thought, Jiang Muchuan appeared out of nowhere. He still liked grabbing my wrist. "Anan, I finally found you." Thinking he was a thug, I instinctively slapped him. Only then did I recognize Jiang Muchuan's face. He had gotten a lot uglier in the 2 years we hadn't seen each other. His beard unkempt, his eyes bloodshot, his once handsome face now covered with a layer of grime. That's why I didn't recognize him at first glance. Jiang Muchuan said he wanted to rekindle our past, realizing only later that he truly loved me, not Xilan. He was simply a youthful infatuation. I had no idea what kind of nonsense he was spouting. It infuriated me, yet amidst the crowd, I didn't want to make a scene by arguing with him, so I blurted out, "You're too late. I'm already in love." Jiang Muchuan's eyes were bloodshot as he protested. "I don't believe it, Anan. I know I was wrong. Please come back to Suzhou with me." While we were caught up in the dispute, a hand suddenly reached out. It grabbed Jiang Muchuan's wrist and deftly twisted it back. There was a snap. Jiang Muchuan covered his hand and wailed in pain. Song Yiming looked on coldly and said, "Can't you see she doesn't want to bother with you? Also, I'm her boyfriend, so if you have anything to say, talk to me." Jiang Muchuan looked utterly shattered. "Anan, is it true what he said?" I nodded, "Yes, so please stop disturbing my life. Uncle Jiang is about to retire too. He can't handle this stress. If you still consider them your parents, you should go home early." A few days ago, Aunt Song suddenly called me to say that Jiang Muchuan had a falling out with them and ran away from home. I didn't take it to heart. only to find out he had come looking for me. It was absurd. Jiang Muchuan was persistent and followed me and Song Yiming around for many days. Song Yiming and I had no choice but to pretend to be a couple and started going out together. During this time, we inevitably talked. Gradually, we got to know each other better. I learned that he had turned to the black market to raise money for his critically ill mother. In the end, he couldn't save her and didn't want to stay in that sorrowful place, so he moved down to the city of Guangdong. Our life stories strangely resonated. I began to empathize more with him, and seeing him no longer felt awkward. Instead, we became good friends. I discovered that we both cherished freedom and dared to dream and act boldly. Finally, one evening, Song Yiming and I sat by the shimmering riverside, under the afterglow of the sunset. We couldn't help but exchange a tender kiss. From the corner of my eye, I saw Jiang Muchuan stumbling away, but someone discontentedly jerked his head back, and in focus, jealousy and pettiness flickered in his eyes. It was the first time I'd seen him like this, and I burst into laughter. Song Yiming's face turned red with my laughter, his hands gripping mine tightly. Through gritted teeth, he warned, "Feng Yanan, I don't care about your past, but if you ever dare to lead me on and then leave me, I will." "What will you do?" I raised an eyebrow, intrigued, looking at him. "We haven't even defined our relationship, and you're already this jealous. How will you manage later?" I stood up lightly and began pacing along the shore, hands behind my back. Song Yiming caught up, grabbed my waist, and lifted me, spinning around. "I don't care, I belong to you now." "You can't be heartless," our laughter echoed, startling flocks of birds into flight. I kissed Song Yiming on the cheek. I couldn't help but reflect. Some people, being friends and being lovers, it's really not the same. A good lover resonates with you, chasing the light together. A bad lover, however, drags you into the abyss, losing yourself. I am grateful to have escaped the abyss and am now embracing the sun. From Jiang Muchuan's perspective, that day under the sunset, when Jiang Muchuan saw the sweet smile on Feng Yanan's lips, it was like a wake-up call. He had been lying to himself, thinking that the man was just a cover Feng Yanan used, and then was just angry with him. So she did this. He pondered a lot later and realized indeed he had gone too far. Anan was supposed to be his fiancée, yet, for someone else, he had repeatedly made her sad, but now, he could no longer deceive himself. No one knew better than him the look in Feng Yanan's eyes when she was in love, like a deep, still lake, silently encompassing everything. No, it was still different. At least he had never made her laugh so openly. Jiang Muchuan returned to Suzhou and married Zhao Zilan. Every month, he would take a train to Yueqing. He would spend the entire day at the tea house next to Feng Yanan's clothing store. Zhao Zilan had argued with him more than once, but he tilted his head and said, "Sister Zilan, haven't you already settled down in the city and started a family? How can you still expect me to provide love for Anan?" His relationship with Zhao Zilan had a negative impact, ultimately affecting his career prospects. Over the years, his university peers had been promoted and received pay raises. Yet he remained in the same position as he was years ago, unmoved. He harbored some resentment towards Zhao Zilan. For him, only seeing Feng Yanan could bring a moment of peace to his soul, but when he visited the tea house again, he did not see that familiar figure. Upon inquiring, he learned the news. Feng Yanan had moved back to Susi with her husband and child to buy a house. He rushed back to Susi, eager to offer his help with the paperwork and procedures. But when he arrived at the Feng family's courtyard, dusty and weary, he saw the person he had longed for, nestled in Song Yiming's arms, sharing childhood memories. In their arms was a delicate little girl, their 2-year-old daughter, Song Yining.